Up the irons, metal community on YouTube. Hope you're all doing well tonight. Another Friday, another episode of Heavy Metallurgy. What is this, number 36? Craziness. And we are joined once again by our friend and cohort, Mr. King Fowley. King.
Hi.
Good evening.
Up the irons, up the tombstones. We snatched that from them so we could be cool too. Because Iron
Up
Maiden.
the big warning all over Prince.
Cheers. Cheers. Good to see you guys, man. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. Fucking happy Hanukkah. Fucking, happy Halloween. Cheers.
All the holidays.
How you doing, Alan?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, Marty?
Doing good, doing good. Been looking forward to this one. We've been talking about it for a little while since King came on the first time, and
Yep.
I think this is a good one for all of us to land on. Of course, King will be joining us for the second part of this, and also down the road, King will be visiting us when topics come up that we all want to stick our flag in. But yeah. Oh, I do want to say, Thrash Times at Ridgemont High is finally available.
Nice.
After lots of delays at the plant.
Pressing plant, freak out, like no plastic in this factory or something. I don't know what it was.
Yep. So definitely head on over to Hell's Headbangers. Check that out. It is a great covers album. Deceased are a great band, but they're also a very excellent covers band, have always been. And always choose songs within their wheelhouse and things that were very influential to them coming up in this metal underground. And it's an excellent, I've heard a promo of it. It's excellent, and you guys should definitely check it out. Go over to Hell's Headbangers and support the King for sure.
It was funny, real quick before you go on to it. Somebody was going to buy it, and they were like, "Oh man, I just thought it was an old high school recording from your high school." And I was like, "Really?" Oh, it was my buddy Patton in UK, and I said, because we were talking about Death Wish, and I sent him. I said, "Here, look, here, this is online. YouTube's got the Thrash Times up." And I said, "Look, dude, whatever song, I think it was, what is the song, 11?" And I said, "Yeah, go here, time. Here's the time and everything." And he came back. He's like, "Damn, that's a good recording, And he's like, "I thought that was recorded at your, like, during the soundboard at one of your shows at your high school." I'm like, "Motherfucker, that was recorded like 6 months ago in his studio." And he's like, "I need to get this, mate." But I got the biggest chuckle out of it because I was like, I really thought he thought it was high school recordings from,
You wish you went to that school.
How the hell can I go to fucking be in high school still in fucking 1986? I guess it's possible.
Well, hey, Death Metal Until Death says, I just got Worm Gear issues 5, 6, and 7. Been reading them cover to cover. Well, if you got number 6, you got a nice long interview with Mr. King Fowley in there. One of the most fun interviews I've ever done on the phone. Always a great time chatting with the man behind the metal.
Worm Gear, the classic mag.
Classic poverty. But we're here tonight for a common goal, and we are going to discuss probably a band that could be classified among our favorite bands easily. I don't think that would even be in discussion.
They are my all-time favorite band.
They're probably top 5 for me.
They're way up there. I mean, you're hard pressed to find somebody who doesn't, love a good chunk of the Iron Maiden catalog. Let's face it, they're arguably the most recognizable heavy metal band in metal history. If not, they've got to be in the top 2 or 3.
Probably the biggest too.
Yeah, I mean, who challenges them outside of Metallica? I mean, they've got a longer and much more consistent career than Metallica has had. Maybe not as financially successful, but they're certainly not doing badly by any means.
They did have a stumbling block during the Blaze era where they were downsized to theaters.
Almost everybody was though at that point.
They played Harpo's in Detroit,
but still played Iron Maiden heavy metal. Let's make sure that's known, because everybody else either went grunge or tried to keep up with Pantera type of shit and all that stuff. All the other bands, like Iron Maiden, said, "We'll just keep playing what we play. We'll ride it out. We'll do what we do." And
that's a good point to bring up. They have never really faltered, whether you like the album or not. I mean, even the new album. We'll get to the new album when we get to the new album. I will say I like the fact that it still sounds like Iron Maiden. Do I think the album is boring? I really do. I've tried. It's too fucking long. I know King loves it.
He's jumping really ahead.
I'm jumping ahead. Because I know when we get there, King's gonna have a lot of good things to say. I'm gonna get my shit in now.
Marty, you're lost somewhere in time, dude. That's for part 2 in a week or 2.
Well, time is always on my side. I'll just have to say that. Anyway, But we'll get to that next time. But what we're gonna start with tonight is Maiden started in 1975. I think the only original member today is Steve Harris. Am I incorrect in saying that?
No, you are correct, sir.
'Cause I don't think Dave
Correct.
Murray jumped on until a little bit later.
Yeah,
Dave Murray's-
he wasn't
yeah.
the original guy.
Yeah, he came in 76, 77, somewhere in there.
Yep.
And then he was out for a short period of time and then was brought back into the fold. But yeah,
Metal Forces issue #1 told us Dave Murray quits Maiden.
Yep.
but yeah, no, Harris. It's Harris's boat. It always has been. But I mean, yeah, he's been there the entire time.
And another guy kind of long forgotten, Dennis Stratton. Maybe at one point the best singer in Iron Maiden.
Well, he wasn't the singer.
I know, but could he have been the best singer in Iron Maiden? He had a good voice.
I don't know about that.
Sweet Dennis Stratton.
That dude's a softie.
Yeah. But
you got to talk to him about Lionheart. You know what? That's what I remember back in the day about that era was when he left the band. I remember the first thing it said was, "Why is he gone?" They said all he wanted to play was the fucking Eagles. He was an Eagles fanatic.
No,
they were just making. They liked him and all, but he wasn't the guy. But he's good for what he does. He went on to do his own thing.
Yep. I'm sure he looks back on his time with Maiden and kind of wishes he wrote it out. He probably would have had a much more stable career going forward. I mean, he would come back around and do things with Di'Anno way past, Di'Anno's prime.
Yeah.
The whole nostalgia train, that probably the closest he was going to come. And, and if you're like a Samson fan, you'll hear, was it on Headhunter, the instrumental that Samson
March.
Yeah, Ides of March. First time I heard that, I was freaked out. I'm like, what the hell? And then he had to realize that he was part of Maiden for a while, and it was a revolving door in those early days. Very Thunderstick, yes. Very much a nebulous period until the band finally solidified around their first album, which came out in 1980. With Paul Di'Anno on vocals, Steve Harris, Dennis Stratton on guitar, Dave Murray on guitar, and Clive Burr on drums. What do you think about this one, King?
Well, I want to say one thing before we get started, since you're holding the record up. That's the only proper art for that record. That fucking later redoing of it is not right at all. What the fuck
this thing does not look right.
It just seems funny, to me.
Yeah, it looks
fantastic looking fucking debut record. Iron Maiden. Okay, well, I guess I better just discuss how I got to Iron Maiden.
Yeah, let's do that first. I kind of jumped ahead. Let's do that.
Fine. That's fine. I mean, I was just gonna ride myself to that, but basically for me as a kid, my first metal bands were all the American heavier bands, which weren't even really metal bands. They were just hard rock for the time, but you get everything from Kiss to Aerosmith to Ted Nugent to Van Halen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I got lucky with a couple bands of the heavier side. Not even heavy metal, but like the Plasmatics were pretty fucking outrageous. I got into that when I was about 9. Let's see. I guess I was about 10 years old. A good friend of mine's brother used to watch all the bands come downtown. He would did a hotel and they'd have the bands there after the shows in DC. So he'd get records from all these bands. And so I got the Plasmatics from him, which was one of these first things like, what the fuck is this kind of thing? And which made me know that I like the heaviest shit. I mean, when I was putting on Kiss, it was Detroit Rock City, I Stole Your Love. I wasn't going, Hard Luck Woman and Bath weren't top of my list. You know what I'm saying? So heavy metal was kind of getting there. I'd get magazines, but back then as a kid, it was magazines like 16 and stuff where you're seeing bands like the Bay City Rollers and Cheap Trick. And that's about as far as it would go. And I went and saw my Kiss in 79 when New England opened, which was a hard rock kind of band. Then I saw Aerosmith in 80 with 38 Special and Mother's Finest. So I still hadn't even tasted the real heavy metal yet. You know what I'm saying? Then that all changed, I would say, right about 7th grade. I guess I was about 12 years old. And that's when all the thunder broke for me. And I was going and buying everything I could get my hands on that had a lot of music on it. I know we talked about the Metal Massacre thing when we did the Metal Blade. And there was just a lot of songs on it. Well, there was this record called Exposed, and it was all CBS affiliated bands on there. And it ended up having Loverboy was the leadoff band with The Kid Is Hot Tonight, which I loved. But then this band Judas Priest was on there. Heading Out to the Highway was from the forthcoming Point of Entry record. And I was like, holy shit. And I had heard of them and seen them in Cream magazine, which I had fucking gone down. And I was just stealing rock magazines from 7-Eleven during junior high. And so I basically was just blown away by Judas Priest at the time. Then it always connected with Iron Maiden and this thing. It was like, what the hell is this NWO-BHM thing they're talking about in here? And it was around then. It was, it was using sounds and stuff like that, which I didn't know these magazines yet. And then I just kind of found my way. Now, for me, my first bought Iron Maiden records were Killers and Number of the Beast at the same time. Number of the Beast just came out. So you're going to 82 for me, which would make me it was before my birthday, so I was 13 years old. And we went up to go. My grandmother used to like to take a trip about literally 20 minutes down the road from her apartment. She lets you go on vacation. And we go stay at this hotel. We go to this place called Aunt Sarah's Pancake House. And she'd literally spend the night, swim in the pool. And we'd go to this shopping mall and she'd buy her grandson a record. And so that time, my birthday was soon. And she said, well, go ahead and get yourself two. And I saw these Iron Maiden records, which were Number of the Beast and Killers. And I got these records same time, took them home, fell in love with the band, and worked my way backwards. And now I've seen this record there at the same time. And to me, it looked less intense. The album cover was great, but looking on the back, it was pretty cool, but it didn't look as crazy to me as Killers Number of the Beast. So I was going on cover art, which I'm sure us as kids, we all pretty much did at one point or another. So hearing the first Iron Maiden came to me the first time hearing those songs when I was blessed by having a radio station, 98 Rock in Baltimore, which played heavy metal stuff at the time. They did Iron Maiden came to America on Number of the Beast and did a show at the I don't know where it was in New York, but Palladium is where it was. And I taped it. And they were like playing songs from that record, like Iron Maiden was in there and things like early songs, stuff that ended up early on, even pre-first album, if you go to Sanctuary. And I was like, man, I don't have this shit on record. What the fuck? Iron Maiden, a cool song. So by the time I got to buying this record, I knew the band in a weird way because buying two records, one had Diano on it and one had Dickinson on it. I'm just a kid learning the ropes. It was weird to me.
Yeah.
So I went and bought the first Iron Maiden. I remember getting it at Kent Mill Records. I took it home and I put it on and I said, man, it's way less produced. I didn't even know what production was then. I just knew in my mind it didn't sound like the other records. It didn't sound as full or as big.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So my first playing of that stuff, Prowler came out of there and blew me away. I mean, just totally blew me away. But I was thinking to myself, a lot of that record, I was like, it's very jumpy. It's Clive Burr's playing on that is insane. I mean, he does a lot of shit on Killers, but he kind of, in a way, he kind of simplifies himself a little bit, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And so basically, that first record, it was so weird to me, like Phantom of the Opera and things like that. I'm like, it's weird, but I loved it. I thought, everything about it was cool. I could tell this was where my heart was going forward. I had no idea if Iron Maiden was going to be anybody or not. It was just cool to me. At the time, these bands, especially Iron Maiden, weren't huge in America enough to have their own show, but they were definitely attached to Judas Priest for fucking 2 tours. You know what I'm saying? So they came over with them on Killers and Point Entry, and then it was Number of the Beast and Screaming for Vengeance. So I was totally blown away by all that stuff. I had no idea what dual guitar harmonies were and all that stuff, but I was getting locked into it. So for me, I have to kind of go with this first record that's kind of sitting by the sidelines so much more. I'm not going to sit here and go and tell you how intense it was for me then, because it was new to me. It was odd to me. It was cool to me, but it was definitely odd to me. And it was different than Kiss. It was different than Van Halen. Bands like Rush I was getting into, and even Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath then. I was like, there's a lot of shit going on in here. I was learning that they were more of an intricate type of band for the most part. But I loved everything about it. Years later, and as I grow up and understand it more so, I personally think that the playing of the album is a little stiff. I don't think that the songs are really good, but I don't think the actual recorded versions on those records stand up any versions they would play live later on. I think it was a little safe, which I would say the same thing. Songs I love, like the first Kiss album, I think it's very, very laid back and safe. And I felt like that on Iron Maiden. I've talked to some people before about that, and some people agree and some people don't. But I always thought it was a little like that. I think Steve Harris, in interviews I remember reading in Kerrang, was saying kind of the same thing. He was a little disappointed. Obviously, they didn't get Martin Birch out of the gate to produce it.
No.
And that was kind of like, I think that's what it was. And I think they were getting their feet, wet. And I know they'd been around for a few years, as you said, and they were, locked in with Diano on vocals then. I would rate it now, if on a 1 to 10 scale for that one, I would give it a 7. I would give it even higher than that, had the songs, come off the way that I would want to hear them more so. But you got to look, and you're talking about the new Iron Maiden now. There was stuff there. I mean, Strange World, man, that could fit right on the new album that's out currently available.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot. You hear that 70s from them, And now that I've heard these old demo tapes even pre Dave Murray and these rehearsals and stuff, you see where it all originated from. But to look at that record, even as a kid, it's scary, it's freaky. You see the little Eddie up there. I love that. I love that little Eddie Ed up there, man. It's so great.
Yep.
If I had to pick favorite songs, I would go with Prowler and Remember Tomorrow right out of the gate. Never been a Running Free guy. Seemed a little bit boppy to me. Phantom of the Opera, I much prefer live, and I actually prefer them like playing that way later on when it was really like locked in. I mean, live it was locked in, but I didn't have any fucking tapes from this era back then. And then for side 2, I'm a big fan of Strange World, man. I think that's one of my favorite Maiden songs with Diano. So I would say that's kind of where I stand on the record. I mean, obviously with Dennis Stratton on guitar, I couldn't tell the difference back then. I didn't know what was what. If you told me there was 8 guitar players, I wouldn't have known the difference between 1 and 8.
No, not me either.
But I did appreciate it. It came a little bit later. Like I said, I was more Killers than Number of the Beast. And I will say this right from the get-go, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but those 2 records. Number of the Beast was the one that got me the most because I just thought it was way more intense than the Killers. And obviously Killers is more intense to me than Iron Maiden self-titled.
Right.
But I love the artwork. I wish they never changed the fucking artwork. And it brought them, hella strong into the fucking music world on vinyl.
Yep. How about you, Alan? Where did you start with this band, and what do you think your thoughts on the debut Iron Maiden?
See, I started a little later than King, but my trajectory is surprisingly similar to King's, where I started out. Let's see, I first became aware of Maiden somewhere around, maybe 8th grade or so. I didn't hear any of their music at first, but there was a kid that sat in front of me in school that had, a denim jacket, and the back patch was the Seventh Son artwork. And so I remember sitting there in class, staring at the back of his jacket. It's like, that's a really weird but kind of cool design. But I didn't really know the guy, and I didn't know anybody that had the album, so I didn't hear it until much later. I'm pretty sure the first 2 Maiden records I bought it was a pair of one Diano recording and one Bruce recording, and I got them pretty close together. But it was the 2 live outings. It was Made in Japan and Live After Death. My first introduction to Maiden was just the short Made in Japan EP. Nice track list, nice live performances. And pretty soon after that, a friend of the family, kind of, adopted aunt, was at a flea market somewhere and, knew I was getting more and more heavy stuff. And, she found a copy of, the Iron Maiden double LP. She didn't know anything about the band, but she had heard me probably, blathering about the name since I had the Made in Japan tape. And just, picked it up. I was like, hey, found this at the flea market today. Thought you might like it. So, after that, then I too had to start work my way backwards. The next things I picked up were the first 2 albums. I got the self-titled and Killers at the same time, same day, at a record show. Just found them in a box full of old used records. Probably gave like $5 for the pair of them or something. And so then it was like, okay, some of these songs I've already heard Bruce sing on.
Look at that now.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And some of these I've heard, the live versions of, and some of these songs I don't know at all. It was a little similar, path to King of having to splice things together, starting a little bit forward in time and then working backwards through it and putting it all together. So that was my introductory run with Maiden.
Could you figure out, Alan, that like there was 2 different singers on those records? Obviously the credits said so, but could you tell the big difference between Live After Death and fucking Maiden Japan?
Yeah, I'm sure I didn't know that when, she handed me, the Live After Death record. But yeah, I mean, as soon as I put it on, just like, I was like, okay, something's very different here. And you checked the liner, and I was like, okay, yep, there are some differences here.
I mean,
So yeah, I figured that
by,
part out pretty
by Live
fast.
After Death. That was a big. I mean, you're coming out with Aces High there. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's weird to think it was the same band. That's because I like the way you got. Mine was album 2 into album 3, which there's a big difference in Dickinson's voice, but yours is big fucking spot there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But yeah, so with I love the demo material. I love the Bruce material, of course, too. But I've always had a soft spot for the very early stuff with Paul singing. Again, part of that's probably that it was some of the earlier stuff I heard, but those two albums are just very special. They're quality releases. They've got a lot of classics that have withstood the test of time. Even and I agree, King. A lot for some of the songs, there were much better versions to be heard later on after lineup changes and the band is really fully matured. But yeah, those early versions do still have a certain charm to them. I still enjoy going back and playing the first two albums. With the self-titled album, Prowler. I mean, just it kicks off right away with that. Just that simple little guitar hook, da 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 da, and just wah 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 wah, and you're just immediately hooked. You're just like, oh, the hair goes up on your arms, and you're just like, this is going to fucking rule. And there's, I'm looking at the track list right now. There's nothing on here I don't like. Sanctuary was added to the overseas press. Remember Tomorrow is a cool song. I don't mind Running Free. I understand it's not a fan favorite, and yes, I know it's
I'm sick of it, but yeah,
I get that for folks. I've always liked it. It has, a good snappy little beat to it. I like Diano doing the vocals on it. I don't like it as much when Bruce does that number. Phantom of the Opera, of course, is one of the classics. Transylvania is a nice little instrumental number that they roll through that, and most of the time I don't pay a lot of attention to the instrumentals, but that is one I will note and like. Charlotte the Harlot's a good track. Silent World, yes, that's a very cool song, and you're right, King, that could have shown up on any album they've recorded in recent years. With Strange World. And of course, Iron Maiden, the eponymous classic. There's no bad song on here. And so many of these songs have been, in and out of their set over time because they're just really, really good songs. Yes, the album's production.
I think with me with Running Free, I think on its own it's okay, but in the layout of this record, it seems out of place. It just seems out of place. It just seems more rock and roll and almost like party-ish compared to these deep kind of things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It does. But this album does have, it has some variations. Like you said, it's got, those two slower kind of proggy 70s sounding tracks. It's got, the big epics with Phantom and Iron Maiden. It's got, just, straightforward, great heavy metal tracks with Prowler and such. So that's one thing I like about this album too, and why I come back to this one a lot, is that it's a relatively varied album. The songs have their own personality. And yes, other folks have been commenting in the comments in the chat too that, the production, is a weak spot for the album. There's no denying that. It doesn't sound very full or anything, but, it got the band on the map. It showed that they had the songwriting chops, to be something really special. And I rank this one very high. I usually think in the letter grades instead of the 1 to 10 thing, but I have no problem giving this the B+ A- treatment, and some of that is just sentimental favoritism. But I can't point to any bad songs on the album. I can't.
And again, with this one, and Marty's getting ready to go do his thing. For all of us, this is for you and me, it's this is our first Iron Maiden experiences. When you get first hear these records, man, it's a special time. I always tell people about certain bands. I'm like, oh, it's the times your fault. You still like the tunes, so it could be any band, but it's the times, the growing up era. And this is all of our. I know for a fact, without even hearing Marty's story yet, this is all of our this is where we're getting into heavy metal. I mean, these are the bands. Sure. Iron Maiden is one of those bands that hooks you in. This is the reefer that leads to the cocaine.
It's the gateway drug. It definitely is.
That's what I'm saying. And that's why it's special. And I can't take anything you said. You're very passionate about that. And I agree with what you said, man. I mean, it is a fun record. It's unique. And along the catalog, it really is its own record. There's not another record like it. That's for sure.
Yep. But yeah, Marty. So your time. What is your Iron Maiden journey begin?
For me, I really have a hard time remembering the era, or the year, because when I'm that young, I don't give a fuck what year it is. I'm just a kid, and I was very much on Kiss. Kiss was my band when I was 7 years old. I saw them on TV. It's all I could talk about until I started getting Kiss records, and I hung on to Kiss for I still consider them one of my favorite bands. More probably now for the nostalgia than for their output for over the last many decades. But I don't know how I came upon Maiden, other than I think there were kids on the bus that were talking about Iron Maiden a lot. And I was getting into Def Leppard a bit, and I was getting into Dio, of course, and some bands that were starting to be a little bit heavier than Kiss. But Maiden, for me, I remember I'm like, okay, I'm going to check out an Iron Maiden thing. Went to the tape store, and I want to say Peace of Mind was out at that point. So what is that, 83?
Yes.
But I'm looking at the covers they had all of them up to Peace of Mind on tape. And the first one I bought was Killers. And to this day, that is my all-time favorite Maiden album. And it really made me love Paul Di'Anno's vocals. So, I mean, I love Bruce, don't get me wrong, but Maiden, for me, these first two Maiden albums are complete choice as far as I love Di'Anno's vocals. And hearing Maiden on Killers was very much a revelation for me. It made me realize that Kiss wasn't the be-all, end-all. It made me realize that there were bands out there that were far more advanced and maybe not clinging to the shtick. I love Kiss, don't get me wrong. But the popcorn pop of it all is Maiden has a bit of a shtick. They had the big fucking stage presence and the big stages and the Eddie the Ed and all this stuff. But what backed it all up was the music and the songs. But I got Killers, and then shortly thereafter, I went and bought Iron Maiden on tape. The production of this really doesn't bug me. A lot of people are talking about the production. You guys have mentioned it too. I see Di'Anno is kind of, at this time in Maiden's career, the perfect vocalist, because he took, Maiden was laying down some really cool dueling harmonies, really lofty, beautiful harmonies. And here's this guy that sounded like more of a street brawler than a singer. He could carry a tune. He could hold a tune. He could sing in key, but he had a rough edge. He had rough edges around him, and it gave this a bit of a punk feel, which I'm sure at the time they were not going for that. I'm sure they didn't want to be classified punk at all, but there's still a street level quality about this stuff. And, that's why I hear Running Free. That to me sounds like a street song, just a street brawler song.
Yeah, I totally I agree with you there. That's why I think that was Paul Di'Anno, even though I think that's the Paul Di'Anno-ness of it. Like you're saying, he's that guy. He's the guy that wants to just, party all the time.
Yep, party all the time and not give a shit. And looking over the track, Prowler, what an awesome. I think Remember the Tomorrow is probably my favorite song on this album. But this, like Alan mentioned, they're still playing these songs live. They are. It's because, and it's a testament to what they created back in 1980. Before that, these songs were brewing around before that, but finally committed to one album in 1980. And this is a hell of a statement. I don't know where, because new wave of British heavy metal, I didn't follow it like you guys did. I just didn't. To me, and it was all Maiden for me. I was one of those guys that I like Maiden. I can't like Judas Priest. Now I like Judas Priest, but back then, growing up through my early years, I thought Judas Priest was the powder puff, poppy. They're like the Kiss of this area. to me, just because their songs had that pop quality. Now I listen back to it and I'm like, what was I thinking? This shit's awesome. So I've gone through and I'm slowly getting I've got all the old shit, but getting, trying to keep up with it. But Maiden for me was a superior band in the same area, the same country. And this shit's awesome. I would give this a solid 8. there's really, I mean, I could put it on today and not be tired of it. Other than Running Free, I'm a little tired of that song. It's kind of the hit of this album. And of course, the song Iron Maiden isn't a great song. It's just their anthem. I mean, the song isn't a great song. It's out of all these songs, it's probably the least complex. But it's still cool from front to back. I mean,
still gonna get you no matter how far.
That's right. What a beginning. What a beginning.
One thing I do want to say you were just talking about was a lot of those songs, you hear them on the early rehearsals and those demo tapes, they were very, 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 very slow and very rock and roll. Like all that stuff, they're weird. They don't, it was weird. So maybe to them at the time, those were speeded up and intensified. To me, knowing them from after that, they were less than after that. And that's what I'm getting from. They were probably, to them, it was going forward. It was more, whoa. I mean, because Prowler, you listen to some of them early, when that fucking first riff goes on like 2 minutes to get to the vocal. Wow, 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 wow. It literally was like that. It's like a minute intro, and then they speed it up, and it was almost. And I still think that album has a lot, and we haven't said this, a punky charm to it in a way too.
Yep.
There's some punky charm,
Well, King, you of all people would know and agree with this. The more a band hangs out in that rehearsal room and does the work, rehearse, you get tighter and you get faster. When they're doing the slow rock versions of Prowler, they're probably still trying to figure that fucking song out.
They're thinking instead of playing.
Yeah, and I've seen you play live behind the drum kit, jacked up on adrenaline and who knows what else, playing 1,000 fucking miles an hour, faster than the albums. So I mean, you know how it goes. It happens.
Oh yeah. And you're right, King. I mean, you on some of the Metal from Others comp and early versions of some of these other tracks like Sanctuary and stuff. They're slower versions. If you hear those later on, they
almost can't even headbang them to them. They're so laid.
You can't, yeah. If you're only familiar with how the song sounds nowadays, and you go back and hear something like that Metal from Others version of it, you're just like, why are they playing so? Is it supposed to be on 45 RPMs instead of 33? What's going on here?
What the fuck, man?
It sounds very odd.
Fast too, man.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. So I would say, I gave it a 7. Marty's an 8. I would think, Alan, if I was going to go on 1 to 10 number, I would say you're probably about an 8.8.
I'm going to go and say 9. I'm just going to go in with 9. I'm good with 9.
Okay, that brings us to number 2. This came out in 91. This is Killers.
91. Okay. Wow, we jumped forward.
81. That's what I meant to say.
I have to catch you off on the White Claws early tonight, Marty.
I'm not drinking tonight. That's the problem.
Okay, we got to get you started on the White Claws earlier tonight.
That's it. 1981, correct. Yep.
81.
What do you think, King?
Well, I was going to say one thing before we went on the air. I was talking with Alan. There was different versions of this.
You did find it? Okay.
Twilight Zone was only on the American copy.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
The B-side.
Okay.
The original B-side was Killers, Prodigal Son, Purgatory, Drifter. I mean, obviously, if we go to Australia and some other places, you'll get women in uniform put on here and all kinds of shit. But I just looking here because I remembered something odd about it. And we, as we said, all the Maiden gets so weird because every country's doing their own version. But anyway.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because my version has Twilight Zone on it. It's a Harvest, which I was assuming was an English pressing, but it's an English pressing of the EMI Capitol Records.
Right. I'm reading it here. I was just filling myself in.
So this must be like an English pressing of the American pressing, of the American release.
It says 1991 on it. You're right. God damn it.
1991, 2001.
Okay, well, as I said, I got Killers the same time I got Number of the Beast.
Yep.
Killers, I had seen that artwork, and to me, to this day, still the Iron Maiden's best artwork. That is the classic, as I would take the British Seal for Judas Priest looking artwork. This guy's
smart ass. Ryan, smart ass.
But so when I had Killers, I mean, as I said, I was locked in, as we're going to get to Number of the Beast, so much there, but I love the Killers too. I loved it in a different way. Putting it on, I'd heard the Ides of March on this live thing, because when they came out, the first thing when Maiden did on that Palladium show was they opened up with Ides of March, went right into Murders in the Rue Morgue. That was the opening tune of that stuff, and it was right into Rothschild, which again weren't any on Number of the Beast and all that stuff. So we were where we were. That was what Bruce Dickinson came out with. So this stuff was pulled in like that. immediately we know Adrian Smith has joined the band. I mean, okay, at the time I didn't know what Adrian Smith was or any of that shit, but we know. So they solidified that duo, that legendary. Martin Birch has come along, which at the time we didn't know, but I immediately can say the sound is much, much better.
Yeah.
Before I get going on my opinion, I can remember Kerrang. I was reading back in the day. Kerrang gave this album basically a disappointing review, saying that they had the sophomore effort fucking curse. Wow. And it was a big letdown from the debut. They did the same thing to Van Halen 2. They did it to a few albums. I can't think of them right now, but they were just saying like, oh, it just wasn't up to spoof. And they were saying how half the record was old shit. Stuff like that, blah, 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 blah. But whatever, when you have 20 or 30, Van Halen did 7 albums with old shit? But, that's how it goes. When I put the record on, the Ides of March came right in, blew me the fuck away. Again, we're getting those harmonies. I'm starting to adjust to it, at this point with what's going on in the world. I'm like, man, it's grabbing me right in. It's big. It's fucking amazing. You get the Rothschild coming in with the bass, and that song's legendary. To think of it as the opening track, with vocals, is odd to me. It seems more like like in concert was always the second tune, and it's the second tune on the record, but it's the opening lead off track. And to me, it's short and sweet to be like that. It's an amazing fucking song, though.
Yeah.
Murders in the Rue Morgue, phenomenal, dude. I love that one. I always loved the lyrics to that. It was weird as shit. Yeah. Another Life, you get to say hi to Clyde Burr with all of his toms. This man is a master of the toms and the hi-hat work. Yeah. Unbelievable. This is the Clyde Burr show to me. This is the one he got to fucking shine like a motherfucker.
I agree.
You get your Genghis Khans. You're already in the fucking side one with 2 instrumentals, so you can see where they're coming from. You know what I'm saying? They're definitely, as we get on to later on in the album that Marty hates more than fucking Hangnail, the new Iron Maiden, you're getting into the 70s vibe, and there was a 70s vibe to it. You hear the Wishbone Ash. Now that I'm older, I couldn't tell you what the fuck Wishbone Ash was. I think it was something my mom would have made with Cornish hens on a Sunday. Wishbone Ash, I don't want that, Mom. Piece of fucking pie. Innocent Exile. I mean, I'm just running through it here. Innocent Exile. But the track on this record, for me, there's 2 of them. Killers.
Oh, so
Killers
good.
should have been the lead off track. And I always wondered in my mind if they fought themselves, because this one had an intro to it. If they were dead set on Ides of March, it would have sounded like intro into a song. Now, obviously, in these later years with these Iron Maiden albums, that again, back to Marty, they are doing intro into intro stuff where it's just long intros, and that's why a lot of people are like it's boring. It sucks, for some people, right? But that song was the track for me. It sums it all up. It's so much power. You're starting to feel the beginning of speed metal, even though I didn't know what speed metal was then. You're into all the speed metal stuff. Prodigal Son comes along, and it could be Strange World's little brother. You know what I'm saying? It's back to that. Mm-hmm. And again, this could be on the later Iron Maiden albums that are boring and 270s for their own good. Then, I'm looking now. I'm going by the UK one here first off, but I'm gonna Purgatory. Another song from the rehearsal things that was extremely slow. This is fucking speed metal. I don't care what anybody says. And a little side note to this, I eventually bought this album on cassette, and I went to my 8th grade school dance. And when I was at my 8th grade school dance, I took 2 tapes into the thing where they had the DJ playing. DJ was playing REO Speedwagon and Foreigner and that kind of stuff. Well, I walked in with Iron Maiden Killers, and I walked in with Saxon, The Eagle Has Landed on cassette. Mm-hmm. I had this huge Panasonic Platinum Earth, Wind, and Fire, fucking endorsed fucking thing, and I blew their doors off in that fucking place with Purgatory. I just sat there and played over and over. I'm just like going nuts. But that's speed metal. That's me. That's my heartbeat now and then. For speed wise, you get your Drifter, you got your Twilight Zone, where I think was the first taste of Steve Harris does like Molly Hatchet, because there's definitely some southern rock when that comes on. Love it. Mm-hmm. This record to me tenfolds the debut. It tenfolds it. It's a absolute classic. It's all there. Steve Harris is unleashing the bass. The leads are separating. The songwriting is becoming its own fucking thing. And I think, Paul Di'Anno's obviously only did 2 things with them, really, if we're not counting the EP live. His vocals are phenomenal. And this lets us know right here. And I would agree a lot on what Marty says with the later Maiden stuff, Martin Birch is the sixth member. He
Yes.
is the guy. He's going to start. I don't know how much he pulled and prodded them, but I think they probably listened on all accounts with this record because they knew Sabbath, they knew Blue Oyster Cult, they knew Whitesnake, they knew the bands he was working with. You know what I'm saying? And they wanted to be as big and as popular as those bands, so they were listening, and they got this guy in there, which was
he really reached
very,
in and found their sound. He's like, "This is your sound. This is Iron Maiden."
I agree.
Yeah,
and I mean, the rhythm section bounces, but it moves. It doesn't. I don't ever, on this record, I get a punkish charm again, but I don't get that rock and roll silliness of the first one, which the Diano thing. I think this was more Iron Maiden moving towards a darker theme. Just a general. You look at that album cover, and that album cover is absolutely perfect for this fucking music. I mean, it's that's a heavy metal album cover. That is what a heavy metal album cover should look like.
Iconic, totally iconic.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm gonna thumbs up Derek Riggs too, because that Eddie mascot, as we all know, is the most popular heavy metal mascot in the world. It's surely not the Kick-Axe robot. You know what I'm saying? And as we all know, too, a lot of bands, as we're going to get to, and where you jumped in, Marty, with your Iron Maiden stuff, when all these bands came along, they all tried to grab mascots, everything from Y&T's robot, and everybody tried to all of a sudden get them because it was part of it. But this Eddie charm was right there, and it was something they could work with, and they used it to their advantage. It was like Jack the Ripper metal, man. I don't know how to explain it any other way. It was the coolest. They were the fucking best. I fell in love with this record. I adore this fucking record, and I'm going to give this record, out of respect, a perfect score of 10. I'm going 10 on this one for me.
Agreed, for sure. Alan?
I agree with a lot of what you've said there, King. There's little changes that went a long way with Adrian Smith, childhood friend of Dave Murray. He had been invited to join Iron Maiden at a much earlier stage in the band's career, but he was playing with another band called Urchin at the time and didn't want to bail on them. So I had to wait and got a second shot at the ring, and that time he was ready, so he came on board. Like you said, they found their man behind the board with Martin Birch, and so those little adjustments and the payoff shows. Worth pointing out, most of the songs on this album, as you noted, King, they were older material. There's I think they only wrote somewhere between 2 and 4 new songs for this album. Most of this was stuff that had been in their live repertoire and could have very easily have been on the first album. I don't know why they picked the tracks they did for that one and saved these others for later, but so I guess from, like you mentioned, the Krang review kind of ragged on that. I guess if you were Iron Maiden, of course, played live relentlessly, and if you were on that scene and you were seeing this band play every other week and you already knew 8 of these 10 songs by heart over years, it may have been a little disappointing to see them.
I think that's what we're getting at.
New material. But at the same time, holy shit, it sounds really, really, really good. Over the years, I've gone back and forth on whether I like, the self-titled or this better out of the 2 Diano albums. For a long time, I'd pick Killers. Sometimes then the songs are just so classic on the first one, so it's very, very close. But sonically, yes, this is a better sounding album. I'm glad you pointed out, Clive's performance. Everyone's always been, everyone always thinks, of course, of Nico as, the Iron Maiden drummer. And Clive never gets the respect he's due for his work.
No, he doesn't. And it's sad because he's a fan. I liked Clive's playing better than Nico's.
I want to say this. I know a guy posted something here a little bit ago. I saw it with Nico. Nico's a fucking energy-driven son of a bitch.
He's a great drummer.
He's old as hell now, and he's stiffened and all that as time went on. But I'm going to say something, and I've heard it too because I have many, many live Maiden tapes of them being my favorite band. Clive Burr had many, many nights where he was not locked in that pocket with Steve, and Steve being a bass player, it got off. I think half of it had to do with drug use, which I don't want to put a man that's passed away down because I don't know if that's what it was. That's the rumor. That was probably the main reason he was booted out of the band was because of his drug use. But I do have stuff, and if you listen to the actual live tapes from the Made in Japan thing, the radio shows they were taken from originally. Clyde Burr messes up a couple times in there, and these are, this is Steve Harris, this is the man, you got to answer to. So there was some of that in there too, but Clyde Burr was just unique. He's always going to be fucking unique from his tom work and his hi-hat. He gave the beats something odd. And what was neat about it then was that Diano, as you were saying, with his husky fucking bar, fucking fighting presence, he found a vibe in there to make it work for his voice. I don't know how much he had to do with laying any of those vocal lines in any of the newer material that he said it was only 3 or 4 new ones and stuff like that. But man, Killers, he's phenomenal. That's like his best vocal appearance. And let's just go listen to it and hear the the hi-hat build that comes in, and you always got all this stuff going on. And a lot of that stuff, which I'll compare it to something like a Voivod later on, there's a lot of that stuff that's driven by the toms, man. I mean, he's not even really keeping full beats sometimes. There's just a lot of and that's just weird. And it worked. It made it work. It didn't sound funny because a lot of bands you would call progressive or, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess just intricate is another word I would use. Like they lose you because it's just fucking lost inside of itself, spinning in circles.
Yep.
It just naturally just goes like a truck. It never stops and gets stuck anywhere. And I give Clyde Burr all the respect in the world for that. Amazing fucking drummer. But I also, we'll get to later, I love fucking Nico, what he did too. Nico for me was a power drummer, and he had a great energy to him.
Yeah.
He was more simplified. I'll wait till we get there. But yeah, I mean, Clyde Burr deserves it. Like I said, this is Clyde's fucking record for sure. If somebody said, hey mom, this is for you, and she put that up on high, she'd be like, that's my son on drums. And that's a perfect album, man. It just is.
Yep.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. Yeah, it starts out just killer start to the album with Ides running into Wrathchild's one of my favorites from their early years. Murders in the Rue Morgue. I've loved that song since the first time I heard it. Just really cool, really catchy, weird song but good song, really tight. Again, you look over the track list and there's just nothing to complain about. Killers is classic. Purgatory, it's that, burner, kind of, they're wrapping up the album at the end. I've always had copies with Twilight Zone on it. So yeah, it's cool to know that Twilight Zone wasn't originally on the side. But yeah, it's a big step forward for the band in terms of sonics. It's another great track list. It's great performances. I give the first album a 9, and I give this album a 9 right with it. Okay. They're both outstanding albums. At this point, I can't. Don't make me choose between them. They're a great pair of albums.
It's your 2 children. You love them equally. That's your 2-headed monster, my friend.
Keeper Call number 2 is coming at you, Alan.
I saw that little grin you just popped there. I'll figure it out when the time comes. But yeah, it's another just fantastic album. They're batting 1,000. Marty, what do you think on this one?
For me, like I said, first album I heard, I had not many, the first 4 to choose from. I chose this on the strength of the cover, and this is a 10 out of 10 for me, 100%. This is a perfect Maiden record, and the production, Headmaster Martin Birch, he reached in and pulled out Maiden sound. He said, okay, this is it. This is your sound. This is what you've been playing with. Here's where you're going. And this is what they locked in on. And the thing that really sells this album for me is the energy from beginning to end. It's pure driving energy, but it's well paced. It's exciting. It's like a perfect riff album. Every riff that flows out is another super catchy moment. Even like the last song, Drifter, it's such an adventurous. It's probably more of the most rocking, like straight up.
Right. I was going to say
rock
that too. Like, I think
song on the album.
Rocking, it would be that one.
But it's very much a traveling riff. I'm going to keep on rolling. Got to sing my song. It was just a very goodbye. This is the end of the album. It's a good closer on a very dark, deep album. I think Diano's his best vocal performance, and I like the way that he put himself in the first person in some of these lyrics. It made the shit a little creepier. He wasn't just telling a tale; he was telling it from his perspective. which made it a little more twisted, a little more strange, which, for this era may have happened, but, just wasn't done with as much conviction, I don't think. But Adrian Smith, he came in to solidify the revolving guitarist syndrome that they had, and he was a perfect complement to David Murray. David Murray was a guy that would go in and kind of improvise his solos, and Adrian would go in knowing exactly what he was going to play, and he was the more soulful bluesy player, I think, of the two. And just Murray's more noodly shred style, and Adrian's more, pre-planned, soulful attack.
Murray's definitely from the Jimi Hendrix school. I mean,
yeah, definitely
get that vibe.
Yep, and they're just they complement each other well. They really built these riffs well, and the alternating solos were always a treat. They always would stick in the head. This is a fantastic album, and there's a couple Bruce albums I always go to, but man, when it comes down to Maiden, I'm grabbing this record. It's just perfect. It never gets old. And again, there's songs on here they play to this day. Wrathchild, Killers, I've heard them play some. I guess they don't play as many on here as I thought they did.
Another Life got brought back in on one of those tours where they were pulling weird stuff out. Which they did that Raisin Hell, or what was that thing they put out live? They did a live DVD. It was Raisin Hell, and they did all that. They did that actual set list again, and that was when they pulled Another Life out for it.
Yep. And there's one thing I did want to mention here. Well, there's two things actually. First of all, I'll get to him in a second. Maiden were the kings at making singles. I don't know if this is a record company thing or if this is something Maiden wanted to do, but they would put unique stuff on these singles to make you want them. This came out around the time of the first album, and this has got Phantom of the Opera Live and Woman in Uniform, which I think is perfect for the time of the first album, because it's kind of a silly rock song that they made a video for, which was just as silly. The only place I could ever see it was on Canada's Much Music. But you got Derek Riggs bringing the awesome cover artwork, which made people want to buy this stuff.
I mean, they had so much artwork with this guy, man. They just if that's just something, let me throw this together for a 12-inch. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Most bands we talk about, that would be their best album cover, man.
Yeah. Yep. You got Women in Uniform, which was rare only to this release. You got Invasion, and back with Phantom of the Opera Live at the Marquee in London in 1980.
It was to keep the punter. I think it was to keep the punters happy, as Steve would say.
Really?
They couldn't get enough Iron Maiden. I mean, people were making their own T-shirts. People were coming to the shows with cut out guitars out of cardboard and fucking, that's where all the headbanging really came from, man.
Yep. And Alex did mention here, it says, where is it? Anyway, he says, right here we go. Riggs is perfect, but yet Marty hates Repka. Same formula, my man, although I'll say Riggs wrote the blueprint for heavy metal album covers. Repka has got his moments. I don't want to take anything away from the guy because he's very talented. I think Repka does the same album cover every single time. And it kind of bugs me. But Riggs, one thing Riggs, I think, has above Repka is he's way more detailed. Repka works with one main image right out in the front, and then, let's look at Death, for example. You got Leprosy, pink cover. It's the thing I take away most from Leprosy is the pink cover. The thing I take away most from Spiritual Healing is that fucking god-awful blue color. I mean, it's like he uses these pastel images and slaps something in the front. Whereas, a Riggs cover, there's a lot going on here with dark hues and, little people down here in the flames and all this shit. Repka never really got that. So that's just my opinion. I don't know what you guys think about that, but
I'm a Derek Riggs guy. I got nothing against Repka, but it's to me, it's not even in the same league.
Yeah, I agree.
No. Derek Riggs' early Iron Maiden work is just the guy did say it too. He's the end all, man. He's the go-to guy back in the day. What's better than that, dude?
Yep. What King said.
Yep.
Hey, you're down here.
And before we jump out of there's a big transition coming in Maiden's career, but before we do that, we've got this little gem to talk about, Made in Japan.
Yep.
This record is dedicated to all the headbangers, earth dogs, and metal merchants around the world. Thanks for making our first world tour such a success. This came out, the Killers, This came out during the Killers era because it's got Killers, Wrathchild,
Yeah.
on there. So, what do you guys think of this?
Well, I love that. It's great. I mean, it's live. Everything's more juiced up. They're fucking rocking. It's for the punters. The song listings are fine. It's more of those songs again. I always wondered with this if this was a timekeeper to see what they were going to do with Diano. I always wondered if that was like, just a placeholder to say, hey man, what are we doing here? Let's keep we got shit going on here. Either going to tour America or do a fucking third record. What's going on here? Now we all know that, well, they went out on this. This is when the Killers, when they broke in America. I mean, they were coming out with Judas Priest, and it was unheard of to have opening bands back then be as popular as the fucking headliner. And trust me, and I know for a fact back then that all my friends that were old enough to go see that fucking show were fucking there for his Iron Maiden as much as they were there for Judas Priest. They were breaking ground. So with this Maiden live EP, I always wondered, was it during that did it come out when they were on the tour there exactly, or when it came out? Because I don't know the answer to that personally. But I was just wondering if it was a placeholder, like, oh man, what do you mean Diano's not working out? What the fuck? What we got to we're getting ready to break here. I'm not talking about the band. I'm talking about the management, just all of it. I don't know, Alan, maybe you know about that.
Not for sure. I mean, while they were, doing, this was, it was kind of, their first, big tour, getting into a lot of other territories and, making a lot of headway. And during this, tour, reportedly, they were seeing more and more issues with Diano, just, getting too much into the party lifestyle. The drugs, were reportedly the big problem that he couldn't lay off. And it was affecting performances. They had, some, I believe they, either just performed badly sometimes, or they may have even had to miss a few shows because of just him being off. And so, that could be. At the same time, the band was hot. EMI knew they had a big thing, so like any big record company, they're going to start, milking that for all they can.
Angle too. Yep.
You strike while the iron's hot. You put out as many EPs and live things as you can. So
put the band on the road. Put the band on the road to sell records because there was no internet.
And and Iron Maiden, already was a well road tested band by this point, so it was no problem putting them out there and recording stuff. So it could have been a little bit of part A, keep churning out the product, and a little bit of part B in terms of we got to sort some things out and get our ducks back in a row. But I like the release. Again, it's the first thing I ever got. I bought it as a used cassette in a little store in Atlanta, Georgia. It's a funny track selection in a way. It's got the kind of like we've talked about the more rocky, Running Free, but it's also two of the sort of slower, more atmospheric numbers with Remember Tomorrow and Innocent Exile on it. But it also thrashes out with Killers, so it shows the diversity of the band pretty nicely across just a few songs.
It sounds good too. I do believe that was recorded FM for over there, and that they took that because I have now. It came out many times bootlegged over that Maiden, the full 2 nights or 3 nights they played there, and you hear it just taken from that. Very good. I mean, fucking energy's high as hell in there. I mean, that's great. And I think I don't know how much that's overdubbed with the vocals or any of it, but it sounds good. I mean, it's you put it on and it's full in the room,
Yep. It's a cool EP. I like it, and just a funny, fond little memory of this. Again, I had that used cassette for ages, but eventually, I got a vinyl copy. I sold the cassette at a flea market, just like a yard sale. I think it probably was at my folks' house, just cleaning up the tapes and stuff out of the attic. And it was just kind of funny because I remember I didn't sell, of course, it's a little house in the country. I think I sold like 3 heavy metal cassettes all day. But that particular one, I remember it was a girl, maybe like, I'm going to guess 13 years old, plus or minus a year. Just she was there with her dad. They're just looking around normal yard sale stuff, and she was looking through the tapes, and it was just a very normal, plain looking girl around town. And I remember she picked up that tape and looked at it for a long time. Like was you could tell she's like looking at the picture, reading the covers. And she kind of like went over and like showed it to her dad. She was like, like whispering to him. And you could tell she was kind of like, I couldn't hear, but you could tell it's just like, Dad, can I get this? And he's kind of looking at funny and kind of just nods. And she comes over and gives me like $1. And you could just tell she was so happy. And there's no I don't think she had ever, knew anything about the band. Maybe she had heard a friend talk about it. I don't know what the deal was. I've always wondered why this, kind of, tween girl, what made her zero in on that Iron Maiden, Made in Japan cassette and go over there and kind of whisper to Dad, to get $1 so that she could buy that and take it home. I hope she took it home, played the fuck out of it, and became the biggest Iron Maiden fan out there.
No, you just told the Leather Leone story.
Yeah.
You went on to Brock Chastain.
That's it.
Alan, we love you.
Yeah, Alan. It's all Alan's fault.
There you go. But yeah, that's just my kind of
I was thinking in my head while you were doing this. I was trying to set up the joke, and I was like, Dora Pesh just ain't gonna work. Dora Pesh just ain't gonna work. I think Leather Leone might have been a little bit older than that. And I was thinking Marianne Scadifo from fucking Black Lace too. I was like, I think they were about 17 around. But anyway,
it worked. It's all good.
It worked.
Yeah, but no, it's a cool EP. It captures the band in the live environment, which is where a lot of times they're at their strongest. So it's nice even though it's just an EP, it's nice to have an official live document from the Di'Anno era.
Yep.
I agree.
I wish it was longer, and it's kind of cool they end it here with a couple of overdubs, but who gives a fuck anyway?
Right.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yep. So yeah, big change into the guard. Di'Anno, I mean, I think proven with his career post Iron Maiden that his voice wasn't going to go the fucking 12 rounds.
And his fucking attitude sure as fuck wasn't.
His attitude was piss poor, and his voice, he didn't have the voice to back up his mouth. And so taken from Samson, they ended up with Bruce Dickinson, Brucey Bruce.
He is.
Bruce, who had appeared in a different new wave of British heavy metal band called Speed before he was with Samson. They made one single that is not very good, but of course, costs a small fortune because it is Bruce's first vinyl appearance before Samson gave him the call.
He did sing a little bit on the Xero too.
Another record show, Dig, $8, in great shape.
Nice.
Number of the Beast, probably the band's some of their biggest hits, and
one of their most popular albums too.
Yeah, but their first, was it gold album? I mean, they hit gold when they were touring.
I mean, yeah, it's just when it all happened. It's now you're in fucking 82, and this is just when it all happened for Maiden.
And I don't know if that's Bruce Dickinson. I think it's just the way the momentum was rolling.
They were going to break. I mean, that's why I talk to people all the time. And like I said, you just saw me give a 10 to Killers. That's why I tell people, man, if they'd have kept Di'Anno, man, they'd have been Saxon. They wouldn't have gone no further than Saxon, maybe, and it would have took everything to stay there. But yeah, I mean, that's the fucking number of the beast.
Yep. What do you think, King?
This is going to be weird because I'm going to rate it right from the start, and I'm going to explain why. Now, I like this album better than Killers, but it only gets a 9 from me, which is weird because I gave Killers a 10. The reason being is that there's a couple songs on here that I don't really think are that great.
Invaders, hopefully, is one of them. Gangland.
Invaders is okay. That's for me. I'm not that big on the Number of the Beast, the song. I've never really thought that was a great one, and I really am not. I do prefer it on the album. I'm not big on Run to the Hills. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to be honest. Gangland, people seem to not like. I'm okay with that one to a degree. It's not great either. Invaders is all right, but here's what it comes down to for me. 3 of my all-time favorite Iron Maiden songs are right here. I'll go from my third favorite Maiden song of all time is "Hallowed Be Thy Name." Okay, most people would say that's their favorite, so you're seeing that's 3 for me. Number 2 all time for me is 22 Acacia Avenue. And my favorite song they've ever done is "Children of the Damned," which I think is the absolute perfect heavy metal song. And if someone asked me to give them one heavy metal song to describe heavy metal in the 80s, I would hand them that. I would hand them the Hammersmith footage. I wouldn't even go with the cleaned up one. I go with that bootleg copy that went around for years with all that fucking scratchy film over it version of it, where they're standing in the dry ice and they just go to town and Steve's got his Pete Way pants on and all that. But I absolutely, this came in with Killers. Both of them had the stickers of Eddie on the middle of we're going to the original vinyls. I got these records from my grandmother. I took them back to fucking Arlington from Spotsylvania, 30-minute vacation. I'm home in an hour. That's always an inside grandmother joke. But anyway, got home, went to the basement, fucking had this huge one of them old timey ones. It's furniture from the 70s kind of
Yeah.
stereos with my mom.
Yeah, my mom, my grandma each had one of those.
The one side has Eddie with the crazy white hair look to it. The other side's got the green. And I just watched that go around. And my basement didn't have much light, so it was spooky. So I wasn't spooked out by the intro for Number of the Beast or anything like that. It was the weirdness and of the lyrics when I sat there and just listened. I was like, this is fucking hallowed be thy name, and the man dying and all this stuff in the jail. And at 22 Acacia Avenue, it wasn't eerie. Obviously it's about a fucking hooker and a fucking place, but it's just so fucking intense. It's like when I first heard Venom's fucking Red Light Fever. Just that noise. Love that fucking 22 Acacia Avenue. And then Shore of the Dam is just beautiful, man.
Great song.
Build up, etc. I was like, that's the first one I played when I got home too. I put that on and I was like, man, listen to this guy sing. It's fucking beautiful. I mean, he was just soaring like an eagle. It was incredible. And I'll be the first one to say when Invaders came on, hey, this ain't bad. Hope it gets better. One of the Dam immediately followed, and that went to a 10+. I'm just going on a list. The Prisoner's good. I don't have nothing against it, but it's not great to me. It's kind of, I almost feel Clyde Burr. Again, he simplifies a little bit. He's got his moments where he's clever and decent, but he's simplifying. 22 Acacia Avenue comes right back and just floors me. Number of the Beast, down. It just never did it for me. It's when I play it live, that's the paranoid to me for them. When I see them Run to the Hills, I don't need to hear it live. I just don't. I do prefer the album version of that, and that doesn't happen a lot with me. Gangland, I'm even going to upset some people. I don't think the Total Eclipse is that great of a song as the one that they were supposed to put on there instead. I like it, but I don't love it. I hear the Snowblind Black Sabbath part in it. It's cool and it's neat, but it's not. None of those songs are in fucking league with Hallowed Be Thy Name, 22 Acacia Avenue, or Children of the Damned to me. Now, had this been a 3-song EP like that, like your Warhead Venom or your Haunting the Chapel, this will be the greatest heavy metal thing in the history of time. But I still love the record. I'll even say this: don't even think the album cover is that great. This was the first time I didn't like the art as much. Killers,
I like it.
Destroys. It's colorful and it's good. It's just not great to me. This is all coming from the genuine heart. Thought the band played their fucking asses off on the record. It's phenomenal. The transition to Bruce Dickinson, you can see how much bigger they can get with their songwriting with this.
Sure.
Yeah. A whole new ball game. They don't have to worry about the fucking rock and roll angle anymore at all. They don't have to play this simplified stuff. They can start spreading out. And, they had Clive to help with Steve with when that goes. And obviously Adrian and Dave are now working together for a little while. So it's coming together nicely.
Yep.
The memory I have the most of this, besides watching that fucking Eddie go around and around and me playing Children of the Damned, I shit you not, at least 50 fucking times that weekend, was seeing that tour. Now that tour was supposed to be Axe. Everybody remembers Axe. That record's in every fucking used bin. Still $1 to this day at most places. They were supposed to come with them and Judas Priest. It was Screamer for Vengeance, Summer of the Beast, and Axe. And Axe never showed up. We went and got tickets to the show, and to this day, it's the greatest, and I call this an underground arena show. It was two bands, even Steven. Now, Maiden's my favorite band of all time. Judas Priest is probably my 79th favorite band of all time. So there's a big difference, right? When Maiden came out, and they only had their little walkways up and across and simplified. They did have the hookers up there and the British girls with their the tarts were up there, and they did have their Eddie come out and all that, and their smoke. They did whirl out all that. I was like, man, I was just blown away. And now I'm a kid, and I'm 15 now. I guess it was still. I guess it was still 82, so I was 14, and I was just blown away. I was like, I just witnessed the best thing I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, there's no fucking way. And I love Screamer for Vengeance. I was like, there's no fucking way Judas Priest's gonna come out and stay with that. Well, I got to eat my fucking words. Judas Priest came out and it was even Steven. And that just was like, holy shit. And that was the epitome of heavy metal on that landscape of time.
Yeah.
I was like, the two heavy metal biggest bands here. We're not talking about the past with the Scorpions. We're not talking about the party rock of Van Halen. We're not talking about Black Sabbath. We're talking about this is where I'm at in my mind. This is more intense. This is like, we're going for it now. And those two bands, man, you talk about in the zone. They were in the fucking zone. That was the perfect A+ concert. And if anybody's ever asked me, and I've been asked in interviews, that's the greatest arena concert I've ever seen. I mean, there's other ones I love for different reasons, but that's the one when it comes to heavy metal that blew me the fuck away. You know, and I stand by my 9. I'm giving it a 9. Only I won't give it a perfect score because I can't, because the other songs just aren't as good to me. But those 3 songs are so fucking good. I want to give it a 10 just for those 3 songs. I guess I could take a pen and like scratch them off or a knife, but you can't, because you can't do that. But I do love the record. You know, there's things, like I said, I have the tapestries up. You can't see them on the camera. I got my Killers on my one window, and I got my Number of the Beast on the other one. I look at them all the time, and I'm just like, I'm so drawn to the Killers. It's just so much, you know, whatever. And I know that, I think if I'm right, the album cover was supposed to be the Run to the Hills single originally, and they were going to flip something.
Really?
And they used this one because the artwork wasn't ready or whatever. They chose. And sometimes I remember Steve Harris saying he thinks he chose wrong, or he should, you know, we shouldn't have gone with Total Eclipse. We should have pulled Gangland and all that. That wouldn't have made a difference to me personally. It wouldn't have changed anything. Those songs are all they're not subpar. They're just not in league with the 3 I told you.
Yeah,
you know, you're literally talking. My favorite 3 Maiden songs are on this fucking record right here.
Yeah,
you know, and then you got whatever the other 5, and counting the B-side, you're talking other songs that are down the list, way down the list. So it goes from here to like here. You know, can you see that? But that's it for me. I'll settle with the 9. I do love it. It's a very, very classic record. A lot of people go to it as the go-to album and all that stuff. I remember in Kerrang, it was the #1 album of all time until Peace of Mind came along, and then Kerrang, Peace of Mind passed it. I mean, Maiden had like all 4 of those records when they did that big top 100. Alan probably knows what I'm talking about. They were all in there. I mean, they were all there. And I see the guy talking about Judas Priest. Absolutely, they were ahead of the game. They're much younger and stuff, but they literally were at that wave. They had found their way too, and they were like dead on with Maiden. It was like they were together, even though they were older and stuff. And they had their rivalries, whether they admit it or not. I've seen KK Downing say Maiden were mouthy, and Maiden saying it. You know, Priests were douchey to them at times and stuff. That's part of it. You know, it is what it is. They're still together, you know, and. All I know is Number of the Beast is cool. The 3 songs I mentioned are super cool.
Yeah. How about you, Alan?
I agree with a lot of what King said. It's I'll start by saying, you know, this is, you know, I think of the album, a lot of folks, you know, at least, you know, when I was younger, growing up, you know, teen years, if people only knew one Iron Maiden album, this was the one they knew. Everybody had heard this album and knew some of these songs. It was also the album that got them in a little bit of trouble for years and years afterwards. That they got the satanic tag because of, you know, the, you know, image and, you know, the, you know, Vincent Price, you know, over, you know, spoken part with, you know, the title track, which of course was quite ridiculous. But they did, you know, they lost some, you know, concerts and had some shows canceled because of that kind of stuff over the years. The cover art is well done. I've never cared for it. And it's because of the little cartoony devil puppet. It just looks very out of place. It's just kind of jarring to me compared to the rest of the art on it. So yeah, it's never been one of my favorite pieces of Derek Riggs' art. And yeah, the track, you know, new vocalist, you know, obviously shows lots of potential. The band is still playing great. But yeah, these songs are very, very hit or miss. It's kind of a 50-50 split, but it's not a side A versus side B. It's like you were saying, King, it's back and forth. Invaders, I've never really cared for. It's okay, and I'm being a little generous there. Children of the Damned is amazing. The Prisoner is all right. 22 Acacia Avenue, really, really good. Number of the Beast, I've never cared for it. It's not bad. I can listen to it, but I've always thought it was very medium. And part of it may have just been so many other people latch on to that song as being, oh, so cool and so spooky and sweet. I'm just like, no, it's not. It's kind of long and kind of flat. It's not as interesting as others. Run to the Hills I liked a lot 30 years ago. I've heard it so much over time that I am sick of that one. Gangland never did anything for me. Total Eclipse always goes in one ear and out the other. It just never really leaves an impression. And then Hallowed Be the Name is in contention for the best song they ever did. I think there's one I would probably pick above it. Maybe I haven't thought about it. Off the top of my head, I can think of probably one song I would definitely put ahead of Hallowed Be. Well, maybe we'll get to that later.
Sorry.
But so yeah, it's very back and forth. And I remember when I got this on cassette, as a kid, it was a frustrating one to listen to because you'd hear this one great song, and then I'd have to sit through the next song, and it was just like, and then you get to the next song, it's like, yeah, this one's good, and then next song is like, okay, let's just get this one out of the way so I can get to the next good song. Is really annoying to listen to on cassette. You're just trying to fast forward through the bad song that you don't like to get to the next one, and you go too far, and then you got to back up. And yeah, so some amazing tracks, also some kind of duds. There's some stuff on here that doesn't do much for me whatsoever. In terms of a rating for all of that, like you said, King, it's hard to pin a number on things when it's so polar opposite in terms of how much you like some songs, how much you don't. I will give this one something, let's call it an 8. It's still got classic songs on it. I'm thinking, letter grade. This is the kind of thing I usually give like a B-, which means I like the album. It has some good things going on, but it also has some problems. It has some stuff on it. There's some things about it I don't like, and that's why it gets the B- kind of tag. So I'll give Number of a Beast a B-. We'll call it an 8 on a numerical scale. So Marty, number for you?
I mean, you guys are pretty much killed it, but I would say, Run to the Hills, Number of the Beast. I mean, Number of the Beast. The beginning of Number of the Beast strikes me as more of a classed up proggy version of the beginning of Prowler. It just seems kind of the same bouncy, and then Prowler is it's kind of got the same. But I always like those songs. Someone mentioned AC/DC. Brian Johnson's first album with AC/DC was Back in Black. It's a really good album for a guy filling really big shoes. But much like Back in Black, that album has songs on it I could care less if I ever hear again. And I listen. I wonder if I rate this album a little bit lower because I've heard it so much. I mean, I listen to this album. The Prisoner is a standout track to me, mainly because the chorus is so good. It's just the way Bruce just soars and really sells that hooky chorus. I don't know. I really like that song. Every time I play this album, that is a song I want to listen to a couple times. Maybe because Invaders just has a really kind of a easy, predictable run, the type of shit. It just seemed like not a good lead off to this album. Children of the Dam, great. Prisoner, great. 22 Acacia Avenue, great. Then you got the two hits, Number of the Beast, Run to the Hills, both great songs. I'm just a little tired of them. Gangland, it's not a great song. Hallowed Be Thy Name, great closer. And King nailed it with the passion and the sadness in that song. It's scary, it's sad, it's everything all rolled into one.
Perfect music, man.
And that's where Bruce really puts himself in the lyrics, like Deanna was doing on Killers. And I really like that first person perspective. I would I don't know, 7.5, 8. I really can't decide where I land on this, but coming after Killers is so fucking good. And this has got amazing on it. Don't get me wrong. There's some amazing shit on here, but of the Bruce era, I would say I'm the most tired of this album.
I was going to say one thing about that record too. Remember, Bruce was under legal shit. He couldn't write for this record in any way.
Yeah, he has no writing credits on this song, even though he did contribute things.
Didn't do much. I don't know if he snuck it underneath the table or what, but that's the one he didn't do much for, if at all.
I sure am glad it got lifted, and he brought that masterpiece, Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, to the table.
We'll get there a little later.
Masterpiece.
You keep jumping forward on us, Marty. We'll get there.
Boy, if Deanna sang it on the first record,
we'll get there. Bruce did help out with some things on some of these songs, but he has no writing credit on the album because he was still getting entangled. I do remember hearing
something about him with Revelation. I mean, not Revelation, but The Prisoner. And something to do with that, but I don't know. This is all just hearsay and what you read. And
well, was he? I haven't heard any of this stuff. He was under contractual obligation to Samson still. Was that the deal or what?
He just couldn't write. He just couldn't write for this record. He had some kind of legal contracts that he couldn't write anything musically for this record because when they get the Peace of Mind, he comes out and he's like, I'm writing some shit, and this is the first time I'm allowed to write shit.
Yeah, so something about his
the only thing I'm getting at this is the one album where Bruce sings on that he really didn't have much involvement with. And again, like the guy said about the Back in Black, he's I don't see Bruce as a guy to stand in the corner and be scared about it all. I think he probably head dove into it just with his personality he has, and what I've heard and seen for myself. But I do think still he's got to get wet behind the ears no matter what, I mean, remember they said they fuck with him so much. Martin Birch made him scream some of those fucking lyrics like 85 times. So he was so pissed he was ready to fucking walk out.
And then they used the first take.
Yeah. Simon F. and me did that to me on Supernatural Addiction one time. He's like, "Oh, come on, mate. I know you got another one." And we did it like 60 times. He's like, "I'm just fucking with you." I'm like, "Dude, you just wasted 48 minutes, man." He just wanted to, in a good way. Probably a lot better than Bruce jumping over the fucking thing at Martin.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we all agree. I mean, it's weird because most people are probably what these motherfuckers don't think Number of the Beast is perfect, and a lot of people still think that. And hey, to each their own, man.
Do I hate it? I don't. I think it's a good album.
Honestly, how I feel. I mean, it was nice to hear Alan say because I really don't think the album cover artwork is that good at all.
I kind of like it.
See, Marty likes it more, and that's fine.
The weird thing I like about it, I like the idea behind it because you got who's controlling who. We're all puppets on the string. I mean, you got the little Eddie down here being controlled by this Eddie.
I like the theme of it. Don't get me wrong. I just don't like the delivery.
The thing I like the best about this is the hands. I think he did a really good. The hands look really evil.
Oh yeah. The Eddie looks really. The Eddie looks really good.
Like that.
Yeah, the Eddie looks really good. The little devil puppet looks like something straight out of like an X-Men comic book. It just doesn't fit stylistically with the rest of the piece. And I
want to name him Gooble Gobble.
Yeah. It's just like he's about to yell, "Avengers, assemble!" And on the next, you flip to the back cover, and he's fighting Dr. Doom or some bullshit.
It's very colorful. Those red is deep,
Yeah,
Hey, but I wouldn't give, as Spinal Tap will say, there was nothing on that fucking cover, whatever. The music's good, man. There's three absolute gems there for me.
Yep.
Yeah. And I've noticed a lot of folks in the chat seem to be agreeing overall that, Number of the Beast, it's a flawed classic.
Okay.
That people,
Good point on the hands. Hey, I'm here. I try.
I thought point. It takes a hand to make a point, right?
It does.
Unless you're like Mama said, your nipples. Marty's got his winter coat on, so
yeah.
Okay.
All right, we're going into 1983 with this banger, Iron Maiden, "Peace of Mind."
Am I jumping right into it, or you want to say something?
Jump right in, King.
Love that picture. One of my all-time favorite band pictures. Love Bruce with the knife and the apple on it.
Yep.
So good. Classic.
Very cool.
That's Martin Birch in the background there. He's in there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you this. Okay, Maiden I was Number of the Beast out. I was freaking out. I was in love with heavy metal. I was starting to get all my metal maskers, all that stuff. But I was like, Iron Maiden is the fucking band that everybody's, got to look to for me.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I went to buy this record at the record store. It was sold out on vinyl. So I picked up at the time the Super Dolby XDR copy of this record on cassette. I took it home. I had my great cassette player, and I put this motherfucker on, and I heard, and the biggest sound I've ever heard from Iron Maiden came out of the speakers. I was like, "Who's this new guy? What's his name? Nicky? What is it?" It's like that motherfucker's nose looks fucked up, right?
Yeah.
I remember that. I was like, "Holy shit!" And I was like, "Oh, that band Trust." I was like, "I've seen them in Kerrang." I had no idea anything about this guy's past and all the other bands he played for and legendary guitar players. Blah 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 blah. Anyway, Where Eagles Dare came on. Now you want to talk about going from Invaders as your opening song to Where Eagles Dare?
Oh,
that's like night and day, Jack. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
And I'll say this when I was telling the guy earlier about Clyde Burr. Nico McBrain lays down the law on this fucking record. He never topped this record. This is still my favorite Nico drum album. He sounds phenomenal. His playing is fucking fantastic. I love the cymbals. I love the sound, the bite of the bell. I love the way the whole record sounds. It's very wide. And it's just, man, power unbelievable. So you got Where Eagles Dare came in, a perfect score, a perfect opener. Unbelievable. I was like, holy shit, these guys actually are even better now. This is fucking crazy. And then we got our first fucking taste of fucking Bruce Dickinson, because he basically wrote Revelation. That was his first song, I do believe, with Iron Maiden writing. I know it comes on the record that way, but I do believe that's how it went. And I thought it was cool. It wasn't as cool as Where Eagles Dare, but it was definitely fantastic. I still dug it for what it was. I liked the stop and start thing. I liked the beat. It was a little bit more bluesy, low end to it now. I thought there was a lot more of that style. I could tell Nico was a little bit of it seemed like an older cat to me by first hearing him then. Flight of Icarus, I had already heard on the radio.
Another song that Bruce helped on. He co-wrote.
Bruce helped on.
He wrote all of Revelations
on the radio, and I do believe I saw this on MTV, which I love the video for this. When Eddie turns up his knob in there, there's one that has Eddie's name on the board. He turns it up, and Nico's in there with the brain and all that stuff. Anyway, I love that song. I remember Glenn Kerrang saying that first single for the record, it was a dud. They were saying it was a dud. It said Dickinson was trying to sing like Dio in parts of that with the yeah kind of stuff, whatever. I thought it was a cool fucking song. I love the last tour where they fucking play it. And of course, I love Die With Your Boots On. Some people don't like this one. I love this one. I love, it's one of my all-time favorite guitar backing rhythms is the do middle section. I love it. It's just so cool. And the record is just like, you talk about some guys that are in like top fucking form. To lose Clive Burr, which we didn't mention, to lose Clive Burr coming over to this record, they didn't lose a step. They got a different style of drumming, which a lot of people will say Clive was the best and it's never been the same. And they're right, but I don't think it was a step backwards or forward or anything. I think it was just different. I love the power of this fucking record, especially.
Well, if Clive was fucking up live, I mean, Nico has been he's been a rock.
Exactly. I mean, Nico was Nico was Nico. The Trooper comes on. I mean, that riff was instant. It's one of the most played Smoke on the Water riffs that's ever been. Every cover band's done it since time, but I still enjoy it. It's just that good. I mean, it's unique. It's fucking, for me, it's unique. My other standout track on this fucking record is Mr. Dave Murray, who doesn't write a lot of songs for Iron Maiden.
No.
Still Life, which I fucking love. You have the backwards shit going on. I love that song. I love the chorus. It's beautiful. Bruce Dickinson sounds great. The melody. Dave Murray has his own style of a very emotional melody, which we'll get to as we talk about his songs. We can go back and talk some other ones he did, but amazing. Then you got the two that a lot of people don't like. You got the ones that most people say Quest for Fire has got to be one of the worst Iron Maiden songs that ever existed.
Love it.
I always dug it. I never had a problem with it. It wasn't my favorite on the album, but it had a swing to it. I didn't mind. I would say it's my least favorite on the record if I was to choose. And then you got Dickinson coming back with Smith and Sun and Steel. I don't know why, but it always reminds me of Thin Lizzy.
I like it.
I like the rhythm in that. I don't care so much for the dinosaurs and fucking fossil bones fucking ankle, but it is what it is. That if there was a subpar moment of the record, I would go there. To Tame a Land is really neat, and it shows you what they're doing these days. Lessened Martin Birch cutting out the 18 fucking measure bass intro for a 4 or 6. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I remember, and I'm just loving this. Originally it was supposed to be called Dune, and the guy wouldn't let him use Dune, so it became To Tame a Land. That's amazing riffing. The picking in that and the vocals, Dune, 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 Dune. That whole big finale is so good, and the drums on this one are some of the best there is, I think. I love the fucking artwork on this one. I love the color scheme.
Yeah.
I love the color scheme. I love how it wraps around to the back of the record. If you pull the artwork out like this, it wraps around. I think it's totally cool. I love the play on words with the Peace of Mind. I love everything about this. And as most people know that ever asked me, this is my favorite Iron Maiden record. This is my favorite record. But here we go again. I'm only going to give it a 9. I'm only going to give it a 9 because it's not perfect. And this is something you're going to see from me as we go through the whole thing. I tell people all the time, they're my favorite band. I think almost every record they ever did is flawed in some way. And I don't want to say flawed, but it's not a perfect experience, but it's an amazing run. When you get what they have here that I told you I loved and stuff, it's just so fucking good. It's like insanely good. And then stuff that's just a step down. And when I go a step down from insanely good, you're still pretty fucking good. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing with me. I love the sound. They came into America again. Now they were touring. They were the headlining act. They had their own fucking thing going on. I remember them coming out with the King Kong theme music for this fucking tour. And then the fucking curtain opening, and there comes Where Eagles Dare. And they're playing, as I love about Maiden, whether you like the later records or not, I love the fact they believe in their music and they want to be heard. They're not going to just come out and play the fucking 8 to 10 fucking greatest hits fucking record over and over. I appreciate that. They played To Tame a Land when I saw them on this fucking tour. They played Trooper. They played Die With Your Boots On. They played Flight of Icarus. They played Revelation. They played Where Eagles Dare. That's what I saw them do. To Tame a Land didn't get played a lot either. I don't think it went the whole tour, if I'm right. Steve Harris type of thing there. They were amazing. I remember they came. It was Fastway opened up, and Coney Hatch were the opening acts for this one, 1983. The place was packed to the hilt. There was more merchandising you know what to do with. Eddie was everywhere. And now they've got a solidified visual to sell Iron Maiden, and that's Eddie, you know, and that was very important in the time of materialistic 80s.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Man, you got to have the Eddie shirt in every town. What was it? Empire State Building, or let me go the one where he's on the surfboard, California, or he's got the fucking on the horse in Texas, whatever it was. You know, he always seemed to get a shirt in every fucking state. It was amazing. We saw him play. Nico could play all the stuff. The old stuff was neat. The way he played the stuff, I liked it. He couldn't play it like Clive. That's for goddamn sure. But he definitely, was cool. They'd still do those songs. From time to time, they'd bring Your Sanctuary or Drifter or that kind of stuff out and do it. That was it. This is when they were absolutely the biggest band in heavy metal in my eyes. They were, and you could see it was going to go on for a few years. You didn't know then, but going back in my mind, it was obvious that they hadn't even reached their point yet. To me, I mean, it's my favorite record, but they were like at this plateau that I personally think Judas Priest slipped up. Defenders of the Faith to me was a big step down from Screaming, which was a commercial heavy metal album, but a very good one. I thought Defenders was a big bubblegummy record for them, and I saw the difference of what was going on. I saw Judas Priest was still drawing, but not drawing. Maiden was passing them by. And I'm not trying to make it a contest or put down Priest, just the truth of what I remember from the times. It was like Judas Priest and Great White, and here comes Maiden is out, and both shows are like, I remember Judas Priest come through and it was packed, and Iron Maiden was fucking packed. But it just seemed like Maiden had this momentum that was unbelievable. And you just felt, I did for sure, even then, that these motherfuckers had a lot more songs in the tank still to come. I didn't feel that about Judas Priest anymore. I felt like, man, they done shot their wad, So I'm going with a 9 on this record too, which is weird. I mean, because I think it's much better than Number of the Beast, but it's just the volume, because I don't think any song on here is better than those 3 I named on Number of the Beast. Then I don't think that even the least songs on this are worse than the worst on Number of the Beast. So I gotta, whatever I'm doing it. I'm just gonna do this a lot, okay? Take the Cheech and Chong, man. What's he doing, man? He's got the donkey balls, man. See that clock over there? Okay, so a 9 for me. Peace of Mind, my favorite fucking Iron Maiden record.
Alan.
Let's see. Things to say about this. If you ask me, what's my favorite Iron Maiden record, among the Dickinson era records, my knee-jerk reaction is always to say Peace of Mind. If I stop and pick them apart, it might be, I might switch that answer from time to time, but this is usually what I'll cite as my favorite album with Bruce in the lineup. And starting with the cover, really cool picture. Like you said, King, love the color scheme. It harkens back to a lot of the singles, some of the early stuff they did with that yellowish, really sickly looking color.
It doesn't look like Fruit Loops. It doesn't look like Fruit Loops like Number of the Beast does to me.
No, it doesn't have that cartoonish.
Follow your nose. It always knows.
There's not. The track list is just packed with classics, and unlike some of the classics from earlier albums, like we've cited a few songs that we're kind of tired of hearing some of the stuff from Number of the Beast. I don't get tired of hearing the big ones off of this, maybe with one exception. Where Eagles Dare, great opener, really sets the stage that they're coming very strong right off the bat. Revelations might be my favorite Iron Maiden song. I love the way that song is put together and composed.
Yeah.
The performance is amazing. Bruce is amazing. Lyrically, I just think it's really good. It's as good as any song in their catalog. Again, if I sit down and look at every song and play them back to back, maybe Revelations comes in second, but I'm going to put it up there as possibly their best song for me. Flight of Icarus, I've heard it 1,000 times. It never gets old. It never gets stale. I don't mind hearing that song 1,000 more times. Die With Your Boots On is a great song. It's the one song that maybe has started to wear a little thin just because I have heard it and so many times and so many live sets. Like you say, King, I've got tons of Iron Maiden live shows on the hard drive, and that's a song I have heard enough. But it is a good song. The Trooper is a classic, and again, it has never gotten old. That song comes on, Ozzy's Boneyard or Liquid Metal or whatever. Yes, yay! I'm happy to hear this song yet again.
The only time the Trooper ever gets old is when any cover band plays it. I do not want to hear anybody play it but Iron fucking Maiden.
Fair, yes, fair.
That's my assessment.
Just wait. There'll be Sweet Child of Mine soon after it. So just hold your horses, King.
But yeah, King, you already called out. The excellent deep cut on here is Still Life. That is such a cool song. Yeah, Bruce's performance on it is just stellar, quiet, creepy, somber, weird, eerie.
The Rototom's coming in, phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that song never gets mentioned by anybody, but it is really good. My only knock against the album is the last 3 songs. It's not that they're bad, but they don't measure up to the first 6. Those first 6 songs just they don't miss a beat. The last 3 songs, there are times I'll just stop this album after Still Life, and I won't bother playing through those last 3. I don't mind the Dune track. Sun and Steel just never quite comes together.
You get the Thin Lizzy vibe of that, what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. I do. But yeah, it's got a dose of Lizzy, but it somehow just doesn't quite connect with me. And yet Quest for Fire just, again, you're just off a little bit there. So
they were trying to. He had that little swing. Nico brought that swing that always didn't work. That was just, like we use it in some of our songs, like the Premonition and stuff. And I'm always telling the guys, well, this is the Maiden beat. It's just the swing, and that's one of the ones where it's an odd speed. And I don't know, maybe for me, definitely that's the weakest track. And it just comes down to some of the lyrics too, when he's talking about all that, and animal he can't find the spot to really sing when he wants to sing.
The song's a little awkward, but yeah, it's still an amazing record full of classics that have stood the test of time extremely well. One thing that didn't stand the test of time very well, well known, buried, down at the end of the liner notes, originally on the back cover, they made a point of saying, and let me read to quote. Let's get it right here. A little tiny print. Yes, no synthesizers or ulterior motives. Rubbing it in everybody's face that we're not using any synthesizers on this. Fuck all you bands playing synthesizers. This is a lesson, boys and girls. Be careful what you put in your liner notes because it might come back to bite you in the ass somewhere in time. That's all I'm going to say.
I talked to somebody about that one day, and they said Maiden never use synthesizers; they use keyboards.
Oh well, yeah.
No, they use guitar synths.
Yes, that was that. Yeah, that's coming around. But and what I did see Dickinson go on record talking about that in one of those weird magazines from Brazil or something. He was basically saying they weren't a good synthesizer-driven band. It was just kind of went in there that way. I mean, backtracking, whatever you want to call it, backpedaling. I mean, I had no problem when they do, but I knew you were going to say that. You're going to pull that motherfucker right there. And I don't think, but they stayed away from the ulterior motives, so they're batting 500.
They did.
I guess so, but yeah. Marty, your turn. Peace of Mind.
This is probably the most pulled Bruce album. I mean, I love Power Slave that comes after it, but this album is just so good. From the production, it's the Maiden sound, but there's something about it. There's a little bit more atmosphere creeping in. It sounds like the dark 80s to me. I don't know. It's weird. For me, the deep cuts, I love the hits Where Eagles Dare, Revelations, amazing. Flight of Icarus, Die With Your Boots On, great. Side A is perfect. Trooper, great. Still Life, amazing. But starting from Still Life, the last 4 songs are great. I love them. Sun and Steel, Quest for Fire, maybe some cheesy lyrics, but they're not the hits that we've been hearing a million times. And every time I hear them, it's refreshing, very refreshing. Tame a Land, Still Life is probably the best of them, but there just isn't a song on here I dislike. I got to give it a 9.2. I'm going to give this a 9.2.
Had to outdo me, didn't you, Marty?
I had to go 9.2.
Goddamn bruiser. Some cunt's taping this.
I never get sick of this record. And Alan, that's a really good point to bring up. No matter how many times I hear these songs, I'm not sick of them. Whereas Number of the Beast, it's kind of a different situation.
Yeah.
The hits on there. And these songs were played just as much. I mean, they were. They've remained in their catalog forever. I mean, they do the hits tours. The Troopers in there. Die With Your Boots On is in there.
Well, they just brought Flight of Icarus out. If you guys didn't see him last tour for the first time in forever.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And Where Eagles Dare was in there too.
Yep, it's just such a classic record. I just love it. I look at it and I want to listen to it. It's not Killer's perfect, but it's damn good.
And let's also, this is Steve Harris's favorite Iron Maiden record.
Yep. Is it really?
Yeah, this is Steve Harris's favorite Iron Maiden record. Yep.
Wow.
And I will say this, it's just in closing on this record, I think this is their first full-on heavy metal record. I think this is a complete heavy metal record start to finish. Number of the Beast is close, but I still hear some of that rock and roll in there that I just do not hear at all. Ganglands and stuff like that. Maybe in just the Clyde Burr swing way he did it and stuff. But this one to me is full-on heavy fucking metal now.
Yeah, Ash Bowen makes a good point. Masterpieces don't age. Kind of true.
Well said.
Thank you, Ash.
All right.
Yeah. If I may not have given a numerical ranking. I would give it a 9. No,
all right, we're all 9. We're 9. We're 666 upside down, man.
We're 6.2 thanks to somebody.
9.2. 9.25.
Some of that Mexican
it's
beer.
Like Maiden Pie is what I'm going for. 9.2.
You're the guy on eBay who always bids an extra 53 cents, aren't you?
I do.
Instead of just in regular increments.
Right, because most people will quit it. Well, I usually go like 9.56 because most people stop at 9.50.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Dude, I'm
9.55.
but I always go uneven because I think so. I'm like, well, this guy Marty's probably thinking 6. I'm going 7.
Yeah,
I would bid 88 because I figure at that point, if you want to beat me, you got to go to the next dollar, and if you're not willing to, it's mine.
Yeah, All King's weekly
the
raffles on Facebook. He's like, well, let's see which one Marty put on here. Well, I'm not picking that number. Fucker. Next up, we've got a heavy hitter.
Mm-hmm.
What year is this? I don't know. 84?
84.
Absolutely.
84. Power Slave. This is a doozy for sure.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing about this when it came out was this and Dio both had the Egyptian theme right at the same time. It was weird.
Right.
Like, what the fuck's going on with the Egyptians?
The chains are off.
Of course, this is a fucking first day by the fucking record. I remember MTV had banned the 2 Minutes to Midnight video because of the lyrical content of it at first. When they ran it a couple times and it sat for a few weeks. They didn't play it because of the lyrical content and all the, dead babies lyrics and things like that in there. So I remember seeing the video for that and fucking loving it, going, man, these motherfuckers, look at the stage they got now. Look at Dickinson. They just looked more like intense, it was getting crazier.
Mm-hmm.
But I was disappointed with this record. And I'm going to tell you, I just played this record in its entirety last week. Just me and my wife were driving. I said, she had her fucking phone. I said, put some of this shit on. Put Power Slave in. Aces High. Perfection. Their best opening song they ever did. Okay, that's my top 10 songs. It's right there. 2 Minutes to Midnight. Phenomenal. Even if it does have the same riff as Faster Than the Speed of Light from Raven. Welcome to Hell. There's this and that. Whatever. Lost for Words. I can barely make it through that song. It does absolutely nothing for me. I know they wanted to get back to doing those Iron Maiden instrumentals. It did nothing for me. Okay. I love the beginning of Flash of the Blade. I thought it was cool. Then it goes boring to me. It almost goes boogie. It's a lot of this record has a lot of a boogie vibe to it that I just don't get. Some people think this is their heaviest record, and in spots it's fucking incredibly heavy. Yes, this right here, and the Duelist doesn't do a lot for me. So I've got fucking killer, actually killer, for side one, and I was like, bought this. I was like, man, what the fuck? So I flipped it over. And Back in the Village came on, and I liked it. It was again, I hear some of that Thin Lizzy boogie in there on this one. It was decent, but it seemed like, and we all know this is about the time when speed metal was just starting to come along. And I do know from watching Maiden things and reading stuff in their biographies and stuff, cocaine was in their camp too. And Steve Harris always said, I never told people they couldn't do drugs. I just said, if you fuck up on stage doing drugs, you can't do fucking drugs. That's what he said. Okay, I'm not saying he did it because I don't think that's his fucking style, but. Back in the Village, Then you get the title track, which is one of the greatest fucking songs in the history of fucking Iron Maiden again. So
Great.
Now I'm like, holy shit, we're doing this Number of the Beast fucking thing again here. This is fucking crazy, right? And then Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, which was all over Kerrang, and they were like, oh my God, Steve Harris pins this fucking 14-minute fucking opus, and it's going to be the longest song they ever did, and it's the story of blah, 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 blah. And I put it on, and I fucking loved it. I fell in love with it, and this is probably when I fell in love with lengthy songs from Iron Maiden. I mean, I guess you had no choice, those going back to Phantom of the Opera and all that, they're not as long. Of course, there would be two of those, but I love this. I love the dramaticness of it. I love the it's stage presence of it. It's almost like heavy metal Broadway in parts, it's crazy. So if you go back and look at it, you got 1, 2, amazing. You got 4 in a row. Back in the Village, I'll give a step up. Didn't do a lot for me, man. I really, Lost for Words is one of my absolute least favorite Maiden things they ever did. Power Slave is fucking perfect. Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner is very close to perfect. So when I rate this record, I'm going 7 on this fucking record. And the tour was fucking huge. We all know that. This was the longest tour I think they still ever did in the history of their fucking thing. They came through
crazy.
3-4 times. I mean, they came through once with Twisted Sister. They came through with Accept. They came through with Quiet Riot. I think they might have come back a 4th fucking time with Quiet Riot again or something. And I was just like, wow. And they really were one of the biggest bands. I mean, exclusive MTV premiere of 2 Minutes to Midnight, blah, 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 blah. And the thing about this record that was so weird was they did an Aces High follow-up video. This record was, I mean, as any of these ones we've talked about, there was no radio airplay. This shit was MTV. I mean, my local rock station would play, Trooper from that one record once in a blue moon. But I mean, this one here, I don't remember ever hearing one song on this. I don't remember hearing 2 Minutes to Midnight on the radio ever where I lived. And then I grew up, they played Crocus and, Michael Schenker Group and all that kind of stuff, but they never played this. But it didn't fucking matter. They were the biggest fucking band. I mean, they were selling out everywhere they went. And tour was fucking phenomenal. They were getting a little bit more colorful. I noticed that, Bruce Dickinson had his sun in his hair. It was almost blonde at one point. Mm-hmm. They had these nice tans and stuff. They were starting to get, the money was starting to come in.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a good or a bad way. More power to them because one thing nobody can take away from Maiden is they've earned everything they've ever done on the fucking road and to the music they want to play. Because there's nothing commercial about this record at all.
No.
I mean, that's just the thing. I just, as a fucking fan, was a little disappointed. And as I listened to it last week, I told her, my wife, I was like, some of this is like boogie. It's just like, it just was weird because I was like, I wonder what they were going for. And I started thinking about these, these Maiden fucking part 1, the history of Maiden. I'm like, the cocaine slipping in. I'm just thinking they're speeding up everything. It's starting to get fast. And I'm a firm lover of the speed, man. I love my speed, but it just seemed, maybe a couple of these tunes were just, maybe they were just so fucking worked that they couldn't put it together. I've got friends that love this, that live for Lost for Words and all this stuff. I remember seeing them on X Factor tour and being out in the line to get in because we had a general admission thing, and I remember them on stage sound checking Lost for Words at the sound check that afternoon, which was X Factor, and it was just fucking weird as shit. But I got to be honest, it was a 7. It was, there's absolutely at least 3 gems with Aces High, fucking 2 Minutes, and Power Slave. Power Slave is my personal favorite song on this record. I think it's unique. I think you get that same vibe I get with Hallowed Be Thy Name. The music is fitting for the lyrical content. And that, to me, as a writer and deceased and everything, is the perfect fucking, perfection. When you can put the lyrics to a music that's fitting, you get to tell the whole story. It doesn't seem shorted or long-winded either, somewhere like that. And that's what I think of the song Power Slave. I just think it's perfect. And that's a fucking Bruce Dickinson one, all by him lonesome.
Yep. Awesome.
And just one more thing, and I'll let you go on the next one. Let Alan have his turn here. I remember seeing him on the best, the Legacy of the Beast tour where they were doing all the best of, and they brought Power Slave back, right? Well, I was at Madison Square Garden. Well, the fucking power went out in Madison Square Garden while they were playing that song. And everything went out except for the drums, of course, because he's playing. And I'm watching him up there, and I really, as a lot of people know, I had a stroke in 2004. I thought I had another fucking stroke. I was sitting there going,
oh, geez.
I literally was like, it's like everything stopped. And then I saw them like, what the fuck? And then Bruce kept faking it for about 30 more seconds. He was like pointing like as if he was still playing, making the best he could out of it. Went on for about 20 minutes for them to get the PA back on. The emergency light came, the whole place never went dim like that, but all the music stopped. And they took the fucking they had the Egyptian stuff on stage for that. He had the mask and all that back for this thing. They took the Eddie fucking mummy fucking things. They put them on each end. They played soccer on stage. That was the goalies on both stage for like literally 15 minutes. If anybody watching this or listening right now, go to YouTube and look up, Power Blackout at Madison Square Garden. I think it was 2007 or something, maybe a little bit later. And you'll see it on there. It's fucking crazy. And then it came back on, and they didn't even finish the song. I didn't get to see all Power Slave that night, but a 7 for Power Slave.
Alan.
That's a very interesting take, King, because, a lot of folks really love the deep cuts on this album with Flash of a Blade, Back in the Village, all that stuff. I have almost nothing to say because I agree with everything you said song for song. This album, I don't like it as much as some other folks do. It starts with, one of the best 1-2 punches ever, Aces High, 2 Minutes to Midnight. And then the middle of this album has never really resonated with me. The instrumental, this is no Transylvania. This is no, March of the Ides of March. This is no Genghis Khan. It's just whatever, it's there. Flash of the Blade, Duelist, Back in the Village. I am perfectly content to skip those songs most of the times I play this album. But then you get to the end, you get to those 2 big epic tracks. Power Slave is, great. The only place I disagree, Rhyme with the Ancient Mariner is the track. I think it's possibly the best of the sort of long form, epic, heavy metal songs ever done. They nailed the story. It moves through different parts and phases and changes just perfectly. I can't think off the top of my head of another one of these sort of long 10+ minute metal epics that could outdo Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. So the album starts with 2 incredible bangers. It ends with 2 incredible epics. And all the stuff in the middle, I just don't need. There's nothing, I'm not saying they suck. But they're not personal favorites. They're not tracks I listen to very much. And as such, overall, that means this is a kind of a split album for me, where it's got some great stuff, but it's also got some stuff that it just doesn't click with me. I would give it a B. I'll put it higher than Number of the Beast. So I'm giving it probably a solid 8 or 8 and change or something, but I'm just not going to give it much higher than that. There's too many songs here that just don't click for me to rank it any higher. It's worth it for the great moments, obviously, but there's a lot of tracks here I can skip and be perfectly content.
Not to interrupt you, but I do want to say the sound on this record is massive. The production, again, as we keep going on, we know this, so we're not saying it. Martin Birch is following them the whole way, and he's guiding them, and it's fitting as fuck for the time. This is an 84 heavy metal, powerful fucking sounding record, whether we agree on the songs themselves or not, but it sounds fucking great, and the band is. Dickinson he's definitely the air raid siren here.
Yeah. And again, I do want to state it clearly. The tracks on here that I'm not that keen on, I don't think they're bad tracks. These are not Invaders or Gangland quality tracks. They're much better than that kind of stuff. They're just not for me.
Donkey balls. And so I'm saying when something's this high and then something ends up here, it's not that it sucks, because it's just like it ain't here, man. That's all. Donkey balls. It's 2 quarter after 10, man.
So I'll go 8 on Power Slave, and I'll skip that middle.
8.2 for Alan on that one. But what about you, Mr. Marty?
Screw you guys. I'm going with a 9 on this, and
that's cool.
the part of the album you think gets tired is Ace. This album's got two of my all-time favorite Bruce songs. Ace is High, of course. Like King said, there's been no better opening track of all of metal, really. I mean, Ace is High is such a banger of a song. 2 Minutes to Midnight. I used to think the song kind of wandered a bit, but I like it. I still like it. It's a classic. I still like it. I'll sing along with it note for note. But it is kind of wandering. After the high power, high octane of Ace is High, it's a bit of a step down, but I still love it. Lost for Words, Big Aura. I love the guitar harmony and the solo. I love it, but it just, when I hear this song, I know what's coming, and it's my favorite Bruce song. It's Flash of the Blade. Hands down, it's my favorite Bruce song.
Wow.
It's got a bit of a speed metal feel to it. He's, as a young boy chasing dragons, he brings down that register a little bit. Sounds a little more dark, a little more mischievous. I fucking love that song. If I'm listening to it on CD, I'll rewind it 5 times. Every time. I love that fucking song. The Duelist, that I like. The song.
Maybe if you sang Flash of the Blade, you actually sounded pretty good doing it, man.
Well,
Maybe I'll get a recording with you doing it. Maybe it'll go up my ladder.
Steve, call me. The Duelist, it is kind of a throwaway track. It doesn't offend me. Back in the Village, I hate the ending. The back of the village, in the back of the village, in the back of the village.
Yeah, that was one of the things I pointed out to my wife the other day.
Lame.
Before you go on, too, where you just stop, let it be known there's 2 songs in a row about fucking fencing on here.
Yeah, well, that's Bruce. That was his interest at the time.
That was his thing. I mean, he'll stab you in my fucking face and tell me to shut the fuck up. Go ahead, Bruce.
Back in the Village, good song. I hate the ending. It always bugged me. Power Slave, perfect song. Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Wow, what a song. It isn't just because it's a long song. I mean, during this era, people were so enamored with the long song. I mean, let's break down Satan's Fall by Merciful Fate. At one point was like one of the longest songs out there in the metal realm. If you listen to that song, it's a mess. I'm sorry. People have called me a fucking idiot for saying this. It's a fucking train wreck of a song. You could tell there's like 3 songs there they sandwiched together because they wanted to make a long song. I mean, this whole long song thing was just like this unobtainable goal that these bands were shooting for. People would hint at it and they would just fuck it up all the time. Merciful Fate was one of them. But this song, Rime of the Ancient Mariner, this is like one of the first long songs that all of it makes sense. And it's almost, not only is it telling a tale, it's almost like I listen to the song, I can see what's happening in my head. Yeah. It's like I'm, musical movie. Like with a part, the do. I could just see a ship with no wind in its sails, just sitting in a dead water, just creaking back and forth. It's fucking genius. It's genius.
The stage show for that on the tour.
Yeah,
they put that ship on the stage.
Yeah, the dry ice and just the low lights, and it just it just during that part of the song, it's such a dismal vibe. It's just amazing how Steve crafted this thing to perfectly match the song. What a great fucking song. What a great song. And they win. They beat Satan's Fall. It was like 13 some minutes where Satan's Fall was 11. But Satan's Fall is a train wreck. I mean, King crushes on it, but man, the music is anyway, this is a 9 for me. It's a great album. It's so that album cover, so iconic. Such a great cover.
Well, the artwork is cool for it. I do appreciate it.
Oh,
yep. So much detail.
I still don't know why them and Dio did Egypt same year. I wonder if they knew about it or they were just like, whoa, man, look what Dio's doing. Whoa, look what Maiden's doing.
Right. And it's funny. They basically put the whole motif of the album off of one song.
Right.
Which is strange, but it works. It's cool. Yeah.
But what a song.
What a song. And before we jump off this era, we can't get out of this without talking about, actually I have a couple things here. Singles, 2 Minutes to Midnight.
Yep.
This has got
some of their best B-sides.
Yeah, Rainbow's Gold. And
the Jethro's Tull cover from Peace of Mind.
King of Twilight. What a great fucking song.
Nectar cover there.
Nectar cover. Off the Aces High single. So good. So yeah, they were the king of singles, and of course, probably the king god Zulu of all metal live albums. What do you guys think of this one?
It sounds like they're playing the stuff from this era, on cocaine and with a little bit of a beat up vocal because they did 143,272 shows in a month. And it's phenomenal. You give that in the VHS of that concert, those ones over there in Long Beach. You know, that's where Scream for Me comes from, man. That's where you get it from. You know, that's where it all came from. So I love it. I think it's fucking great. It's a perfect picture of that era for Maiden. It's all there. I love when they broke it down later and they re-released it and put it in CD box sets and they brought all the stuff that happened back then into the cheat sheet for everything, and some of it was in that too back then. Just so fucking cool, man. I mean, if you put that, can you slide that inside of that Live After Death that way?
Yep. Hold on. Let me blow this up.
Oh, there we go. That's what was happening, man. Look at Eddie. Now, I remember when they played at Merriweather Post on the tour, the Eddie head fell over right on the Nico. When they did this, it was the accept opened up, and the Nico head fell over, right? And all the fireworks are pointing down. Yeah, that's where all the cheat sheet and everything. That's so cool, man. They were. Look at that. Look at that stage. I mean, to see them, you know, and these are the guys that sweated their ass off in them bars and everything. And just to have that, I mean, you know, people say, I've had some friends say, "Oh man, Iron Maiden's Las Vegas now." They were fucking Las Vegas then, dude. If you're going to say that, they were Las Vegas then. Yeah, you know, like I go see them play, and they have this huge, amazing, you know, massive stage show. It's just too much, so you just need to scale it all back. Well, we're going to get to the when they scaled it all back, and that was fucking cool. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. That was cool. That's an amazing era for the band, even if the record wasn't perfect. And I get it, man. I've never been lucky enough to go on 142 dates in 150 days. Imagine where my mind is to write songs during all that. You got the fucking fame, you got the money, you got the girls, you got all that shit to worry about and stuff. And they still came out with half of a fucking amazing record on my behalf. Thinking about it, I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, they were the biggest band. I mean, again, MTV exclusives. It wasn't, you know, this wasn't Michael Jackson shit. This was shit that was on the level with that, though, making that much money, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Iron Maiden has conquered the world in every foreseeable
way of saying it, my friend. Perfect way of saying it.
Look at that album cover. Derek Riggs' finest moment, man. Look how the detail, so killer. Love it.
Just having fun with that stuff.
Yeah. Amazing cover art, amazing track list, amazing performances. They're at the peak of that pyramid on the cover from Powerslave. They have it all. The albums are killing it. And again, like, you know, as King said, you know, there's nothing commercial about these albums, and they're still, you know, placing like in the top 10 on the UK chart. They're still top, you know, 10, top 15 albums on the Billboard 200 charts, and there's no commercial support for these things really. Or, you know, and they're the biggest thing out there. The sets are phenomenal. The performances are phenomenal. I love it. It's arguably, don't hold me to this, we'll probably cover live albums on another night. It's arguably the best live heavy metal album ever made. And I know some folks aren't crazy about the sound. And yes, Bruce's voice, you know, is, you know, rough at times, as King said. Well, even a shot Bruce Dickinson sounds so much fucking better than most bands. You know,
I like the honest vibe, but I mean, you know, it's listenable. I mean, it's not Speak of the Devil. I mean, with something like that, people brag down. I'm like, that's unlistenable. That's just fake. It's like it's fake.
Total studio,
Yeah, but yeah, it like King said, you know, it captures the band at the absolute height of their.
I think it's very honest.
It's a great live album. I love the track list. Yeah, and again, there's some bias here because, like I mentioned before, this was the second thing. You know, this was the second album I got by Iron Maiden after Made in Japan. So this is where I learned a lot of the Iron Maiden classics. Was listening to these.
Question. I figured since this is your record, you're not there yet, but maybe Marty. Marty, had you seen Iron Maiden by this time?
I've only seen Iron Maiden once, and it was Brave New World.
Okay, so 2000 for you, Alan, not you yet at all, obviously.
I saw them once in 2012.
Okay, but nothing. I'm wondering when you guys.
Not in the heyday, not at all. I wish.
No.
Okay.
No, 2012. One show in Charlotte in 2012.
Well, using that as my jump. If you're ready to go to somewhere in time, are we ready to go?
I just
Marty,
want
got more to say. I'll go ahead, buddy.
Music, track selection, 9.6. Awesome. Bruce's vocals. I really wish they would have recorded this mid-tour. I mean, his vocals are great. He's still, even not up to par, he's still awesome.
I like the rough edge. I'm going to give that a perfect 10. I'm going to give that a perfect 10.
It is funny because you watch Live After Death and he's like screaming and he's doing all this shit with his hand. You could tell he's really trying to get those notes. He's trying to pull them out of the ether. They're just not coming to him. But he really does a great job considering the amount of burden that was put on him. All those dates, not a lot of rest on those pipes. And he's
let's also say this too. There wasn't a lot of people before him you could compare it to. It wasn't nobody doing the air raid siren every night. You got Jeff Tate's coming up the ranks here, and Rob Halford did it for a while, but there wasn't a lot of people you can go and say, hey man, don't watch yourself. I mean, all vocal people will tell you, hey, rest your voice as much as you can. But when he's hitting this over and over, night after night after night after night, there wasn't many people that could compare it to, especially as energetic, running around, and as heavy as the band was.
Right.
I mean, Lucio Pavarotti probably like, dude, shut up. Hey, man,
sit down
and bring me some pancakes.
But it's a perfect 10 for me. And even beyond that, when people do those, what are your 5 favorite heavy metal albums of all time? A lot of times I'll put this as my 3rd favorite heavy metal album ever made.
That's awesome.
It's where I learned, the Maiden, all the Maiden classics. It's where I really got
classics, all
into them. There's only 2 albums off the top of my head I hold higher up the scale than this one. And again, if I sit down and work through it, maybe it's a little lower. But
right now, while we speak, that's the same with me. I'm going on. That's I always do these things,
Yeah, my knee-jerk.
Right now, when I'm talking, there's been times it changes a little bit. I'm not one to sway a lot on any records. I've kind of always been kind of locked in.
Mm-hmm.
When we go to the, are you ready for the next one now, Mark?
Let's do it.
What reason I was asking you that before was, this is when it gets weird for me, because this is when you're in 1986 now. I'm a death metal motherfucker at this point. I'm an underground motherfucker. I'm listening to Master and Repulsion, all this stuff. And in that time, luckily, I wasn't that guy that said, fuck all this Iron Maiden's pussy shit now. A lot of people went that route, dude. I had a lot of friends that I remember.
I went that route with Kiss. When I found thrash and stuff, all those classic posters got ripped down and thrown in the garbage.
When we did the Black Sabbath one, I talked about, I was a big 86. I was a big Black Sabbath 7-star guy, and I was listening to that and Sodom at the same time, and I dug it. Well, this Maiden, I will say this: I missed this tour, and the reason I missed this tour was not because I didn't like Iron Maiden, it's because I was a fucking drug addict. So I fucking missed this fucking tour. I was all caught up in drugs, and that time I was 18. I was running around. My money couldn't go this and that. It was less important to me to see the show. I'd seen a bunch, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I remember buying this album. You talk about a fucking artwork.
Oh, yeah.
I could look at it right now and see stuff I've never seen in there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That might be his masterpiece. It's not my favorite. Killers will always be my favorite, but that's a masterpiece as a painter. And I know he said that he'll never do another one like it. That is detailed as fucking. I know
it's crazy.
He painted and painted and painted.
And the portraits down here too.
And now that we talked about the old synthesizer here, we know this is the time when the Turbo Lover and all that stuff was going to service. And here comes Maiden's going to go into the future and bring out the guitar synth too. I like what they used it for. I like the unique thing. I think as we talked before, Bruce Dickinson was tired of heavy metal. He didn't want to play such straight heavy metal anymore. He wanted to expand it. And Steve Harris, I think with open arms, fucking said, hey man, I love Jethro Tull. Hey man, I love Nectar. I love blah, blah, blah. And it had no problem with it. I put this fucking record on, man. I did not hear Wasted Years as the video before it came out. I bought this when it first came out. I was there. I put the first tune on. I was blown away. Caught Somewhere in Time. Beautiful. Epic, but in a way I'd never heard Iron Maiden before.
Oh, yeah.
Smoother. It wasn't as rough. It wasn't as intense. It wasn't as heavy. It was heavy in a different way now. It wasn't just heavy metal anymore. It was going deeper than this in a newfound way. I loved the fucking tune. I loved his voice. I remember it was after I heard the record, but I want to bring it up now. That fucking stage show when he had the beating heart and all this weird shit, lighted up heart. It was just getting weird. I was like, these motherfuckers are fucking on acid or something. Now I don't know what's going on. Wasted Years came on, instantly fell in love with it. I thought even then this could be a single. This might be one that can break through. And maybe it was meant to be that way. We know Adrian Smith is now from watching the Maiden history, we know now that Adrian Smith was not happy during these times when shit was getting played too fast and all this. It's going to go on for a few albums here when he stayed back and he was just like seeing it in a different way. Obviously, Adrian Smith is, if I was to say there was a softie in the band, it would be Adrian Smith. I think, in my opinion, I think he's the guy. He did a phenomenal job on this fucking song.
Yeah.
And then he comes right back with Sea of Madness, dude. A beautiful song. I love this song. I think it's one of the most underrated Iron Maiden tunes. I think it's fucking cool shit. I love the drum beat in there. I think it's a lot. I think it takes a lot from Deep Purple, You Fool No One, if you want to go for the fucking rhythmic pattern to it. It's fucking phenomenal. Now, I want to say this, and this is now after I saw the videos, Heaven Can Wait, I've never been a big fan of.
Me either.
This one is almost like this is almost like what I was talking about with some people, not today, but a couple days ago on Facebook. It's almost like that goofy Halloween sound where it's just goofy to me. It's too innocent. It's too tra-la-la, to The Hobbit. I don't know, something just doesn't work for me on this one. I just didn't like it.
The song is okay. It's the fucking chorus that kills it.
I just never liked it. Now, The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, I don't really like the theme of the song.
I like that song.
The riff. I like the sound of those synth guitars. I think they sound neat. I think they have this smooth vibe to them that's cool. It's, again, heavy in a different way. I liked it. Futuristic, I guess is the word I'm looking for. I like the tune. Run, the long distance runner. I don't know if I like that much as far as the vocals, but I like the fucking beat, and I like the drumming on this. Really cool.
Yep.
Stranger in a Strange Land. Adrian Smith is showing this is his fucking album, dude.
Awesome. Yeah.
This is a perfect Iron Maiden single. If I was to have Power Slave as a 12-inch, I'd like to have Stranger in a Strange Land as the B side or a double A side even. Perfection for me. And then one of the most underrated, here comes Mr. Davey Murray again. Deja Vu, which I love this one. It's got that Dave Murray melody I was talking about before with Still Life, where he always comes around like every 2 albums and writes a song, and it has that synth, it has that futuristic melody again. It's so good. I love the vocal line. I just love this song. I think it's cool. And then when everybody wants to hear it be played live all the time, and they never played it, and they probably will. I'm not that big on Alexander the Great, man. I'm not that big on Alexander the Great. I think it's okay. I just don't see if I don't need to hear it. You know, if I was going to fucking see something I never played before live, I wouldn't be screaming for that one. Personally, it's good. It's not great. It's a little bit of a average closer for what we just went through. But I love the style. I love the way the band is. I love the vocals on this. I love the bass playing. But I'm giving this one to Adrian Smith. I missed the tour. Mike Smith tells me all the time about how they had all the UFOs and fucking at the Capitol Center where we always saw the shows. They had these like these little remote controlled fucking spaceships and shit in the crowd. Over the crowd before the show, so it was like they were in space and shit. I've seen plenty of videos from there. There's a beautiful one on YouTube, and it's bootleg for years of them in Paris. I love the show. I love everything about it. It's fucking. They played their asses off, and I want to fucking say that I really fucking I like the Beast. We talked about this before. I love the B side for that girl, the cover tune. I love that, but I cannot stand Reach Out. People love that. That's the other one, Juanita. That girl. I love that girl. I love that cover. It's very commercial. Yes, it's very much it is. Reach Out. Oh my God, I can never take that song. It sounds like The Outfield or something. It just doesn't
I don't know if
work.
I've heard that song.
Yeah, you know it. It just sounds like something Mike and the Mechanics or something. I don't know. It's just fucking weird. You know what I'm talking about, Alan?
Yeah. It's been a long time, but I've heard it.
And that's a little bit of B-sides, but obviously All Systems Go. I guess this is something that we later learned. Bruce Dickinson was having problems staying in the band and wanted this album to be a complete acoustic album. Did not want it to be electric in the least. And they told him you're fucking crazy out of your fucking mind. He wanted a completely acoustic record. They looked at him like he was on fire, man.
Yeah. And didn't want to piss on him to put him out.
I really think that, as we said, after Live After Death, Bruce Dickinson had shot his heavy metal load. He wanted to do something totally different. And I think Steve Harris was okay with doing a little bit something different, which with the guitar synth and the way I said the melodies and stuff. Martin Birch obviously came along for the fucking ride because it works. The sound is great. It's unique. I think this had a special, if they were talking about at the time, the mix or the studio they were using at the time had some kind of like, state of the art shit going on, which I'm sure it did. But I like this record. I actually like this record more than I think I like this record more than I like Power Slave.
Me too.
I'm gonna give this one an 8. For me, this is gonna get an 8. It's not perfect. The only song I really cannot stand, I don't want to say I can't stand it because that's not true. Heaven Can Wait. It's just I just never liked that one. Heaven Can Wait. It just has that goofy, I don't know. It's just something about it. Just sounds like a beer slugging, singing I'm drunk at 3 a.m. kind of vibe. That just doesn't work. Like we're all sitting there, hey, wait for another day. And I used to bring everybody on stage and all that stuff. And that's cool for what it is. Just not my favorite. But I do like this album. I like the sound. And as I was saying, albums don't usually sway for me. This is one I go back to more than any of them to kind of listen for different unique stuff. Because I think this is one where there's some stuff underneath the main frame. Nico plays his ass off too on this one. And that's me. So I'm locked in at an 8.
Right on. Alan.
Let's see. King and I have been on the same page all the way through stuff tonight.
Till now.
And time's up.
I knew it was going to be somewhere in time that was going to happen.
Yeah. Things about this album. Love the cover art. This is probably my favorite Eddie. It's not necessarily my favorite piece of Derek Riggs' art, but just the concept of, Eddie, the futuristic cyborg, bounty hunter, Carl McCoy looking duster cowboy thing worked in. That the images of Eddie from this era just always fire my imagination in terms of, who is this character? What is he doing? What's his deal? Love the visual concepts of it. Maiden's going in a different direction here. As you described it very well, King. It's much smoother sounded. It's it's not as fierce. It's reined in some more. It's a little bit of it's a quieter album. It feels like a more introspective album that, it doesn't have these big, 2 minutes to midnight, aces high. It's leaving those themes behind, and it's really getting into a quieter, sort of more internalized approach to the lyrics and the material. And all that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. But, for me, this is the hiccup. It's not a terrible album. It's a hiccup, though. It's never been an album I connected with very well. Looking back through the track list here, one thing that always stands out to me, some of the songs that I'm not real keen on with this album are, unfortunately, some of the longer songs, and so they tend to grate on me more than maybe they would if they were half the length. And Heaven Can Wait's a great example of that. He repeats that goddamn line 133 times in that song because the song keeps going for 7+ minutes. Just by the 5-minute mark, I'm beating my head against the wall, begging someone to make the hurting stop. It's just, he won't quit singing. Heaven can wait. Heaven can wait. How many fucking times do you need to say it? We get it. It can't wait.
Would have made that song better? Acoustic guitars.
I can't wait for him to end that goddamn song. It really drives me nuts. Looking at, and this is one, I've played it a few times this week because it's one I don't revisit very much, and I wanted to brush up on it, see where it stood now. I Caught Somewhere in Time, not a bad track, but again, it just feels too long. It keeps going longer than it needed to. It's almost 7.5 minutes. Wasted Years is a great single. Agree completely on that. Really good, compact tune. Works quite well. Sea of Madness, it's okay. Not a personal favorite. It's not bad. It's not terrible. It's just kind of there for me. So there's really only one song on side A, Wasted Years, that I want to go back and give repeated listens. Side B is a little better. I don't mind Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner. But again, it really highlights all those differences on this album. That the songs you're averaging longer, the materials, yes, more moody sounding than what you've gotten used to with Maiden over the previous albums. Stranger in a Strange Land, kind of the same way. Deja Vu it goes in one ear and out the other. I can play that song 3 times in a row, and at the end, I have no idea what it sounds like. I don't know why it refuses to stick. And Alexander the Great, we agree on this one, King. This this is almost like the mirror opposite of Power Slave. This is where they try to take, some kind of historical thing and turn it into an 8-minute song, and it just falls flat for me personally. Like Marty, you were describing how in Rime of the Ancient Mariner, everything about the way they play the songs and shift, you're seeing the whole thing play out in your mind.
Yep.
I listened to Alexander the Great and blank slate. I don't see it happening. I'm not picturing any of these, events from his life. I'm just like,
I agree with that totally. I don't feel any of that.
And he died of cholera in Babylon. And what a fabulous fucking line that is to end your fucking album with.
You're a mean motherfucker, man.
I can't. I have been accused of that before. It's a real flat way to end the album. This one doesn't transport you into the song. This one is like listening to the nerdy kid read their book report in 8th grade. Alexander the Great lived in Constantinople and blah, 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 blah. Great. Thank you for those 8 minutes being taken from my life. And I'm probably sounding harsh. Overall, again, the album has good qualities. It's just that, the songs, it's got one song that I really like, Wasted Years, and that's odd. The only song that completely grates on me horribly is Heaven Can Wait. Now, to be honest, these other ones, while I don't necessarily like some of them, they're not horrible. So in terms of a rating for this one, this for me is like, this is the C- album. It's not bad, but it's disappointed. Numerically, I can be nice and give it a 7, but my heart says it's more of a 6 out of 10. This is just not the Iron Maiden album for me. And the last point I'll make in my defense, and I know this is an album that I think has grown on a lot of people with time. I see it listed and ranked much higher with people these days than I did 10 or 20 years ago. I think on this one, they're getting used to a new formula, a new style. And when we get to the next album, I think they really they nail that style much better for me. So, and that's another thing I think that hurts this album. If for this era of Iron Maiden, I so want to hear the next album in line that this one completely lives in its shadow. But we'll get there in about 7 minutes or so. Marty, I think you're much closer to King's take on this album than mine.
This album for me, I think I like it more than Power Slave. This album, I liked it a lot when it came out, but it was different. It was a weird transition. The older I've gotten, this is a 9.6, 9.7 album for me all day long. And it would be a 10 if it wasn't for the Heaven Can Wait. We're all in agreement here. That chorus has got to go. That is just lazy bullshit songwriting from Bruce right there. But for me, this album, they introduced guitar synth, and it does something pretty magical to this material. I would lump this in with the same type of vibe I get from Waken the Guardian or Don't Break the Oath. I listen to these songs, there's an atmosphere it's hard to shake. Stranger in a Strange Land, Sea of Madness. Just the slower the song, it just seems like that atmosphere stirs even more. It's kind of an enchanted sound, and I fucking love it, man. I just love it, the vibe on this record. Somewhere in Time, great song, great start to the album. Wasted Years, probably the best touring song ever written. I mean, it's so smart. The lyrics are so smart. It's from a very honest perspective. They just came off the biggest tour of their lives, the whole World Slavery Tour or whatever the hell that thing was called. And it seemed like it never ended. And, I'm sure you look back, am I wasting my life doing this? Every day is exactly the same, and Wasted Years is a perfect depiction of that whole experience, I think. Sea of Madness, great song. Heaven Can Wait's garbage. Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, I like the driving nature of it, and Nico's driving beat. It matches the theme of the song. Don't stop, keep running on and on, got to beat the time, da 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 da. That pushing, I just always like that concept, matching the music. Stranger Strangeland, great atmospheric, awesome song, great song. Deja Vu, fun. Alexander the Great. The best part about it's the solo or the chorus. I like the chorus. I like what Bruce does with it, where he takes it.
I would say that too. I would say that's my favorite part of that song.
Yeah, the rest of the song, you're right. It's just a a depiction of history bullet points. But great fucking record. High nines for sure all day long. It's not a perfect 10, but it was goddamn close. And this one and Peace of Mind are the two I'm most often grabbing for the Bruce era. And it's usually this often beats out Peace of Mind, to be honest with you. It's just so good. So good. That's all right.
Alan just took a hit, man.
I'm okay with you saying it better than Parasite, but better than Peace of Mind, damn.
It's
No, it's perfectly cool. It's
Bruce like Dickinson just stabbed him with his fencing sword.
Oh. Damn, just whacking me in the back with that megaton sword, aren't you, Marty?
Yeah. All right, we're on next. More synth. Synth seems to be here to stay in the band for a while. 1988. We jump on to Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. What do you guys think of this?
Take it away, King.
Often praised.
This was, 1988. I had just a little bit of my world so you can get my head around it. Now, of course, everything was up to them. Dropping the records as they come out. I'm grabbing them, blah, 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 blah. This one wasn't immediately for me because I had quit drugs and I was living in getting my shit together to get my fucking life going. So I was a little bit off of what was going on in the world. One day I was home. Well, I was home a lot, but I remember flipping on "Can I Play with Madness?" coming out of my stereo, out of my TV. I said, man, I don't really think this is that good. I was like, what the fuck? The cowbell? I was like, what the hell? This is crazy. I almost, and I know it doesn't sound like it, but it almost harked back for me to the early Maiden where it was like, they're going for something totally weird. And I almost got a YouTube vibe from it. It was like, dan, digga, 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 dan, digga, digga, digga. I was like, I don't know if I like this that much. I was like, it's all right. Anyway, so that's where I stood for a little while with this record. That's all I knew about this record. Then I got out at some point. I bought this fucking record. I put it on. Moonchild blew my face off. Moonchild. It was almost like the guitars were almost full on keyboards on some of this. The guitars were so laid back and so like you could almost not even hear the strings. It was almost like they were being played on fucking keyboards. Love this fucking tune. Infinite Dreams. Love this one.
Good song.
This was almost like a Children of the Damned to me in a different way. That it had that second song, that kind of like weirdness, and I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone, somewhere between Earth and another planet. With this, I didn't know what was going on. I was looking at the album cover. The artwork was decent. While we're talking about that, it wasn't blown away. I liked the blue of it, but I was like, okay, what am I trying to go for here? What are they trying to say? Then Can I Play with Madness was third. I was like, I'm not sold anymore hearing it on the big stereo either. It's okay. Don't love it. The Evil That Men Do, I fucking fell right in love with instantly.
Good song.
The chorus, I love the charge to it. It was definitely something that Dickinson, Harris, and Smith on this one. But I could hear the Harris, the drive, the gallop. It's very, very fucking cool. Then you got your what I call Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner Part 2 with the title track. Not as long, but always kind of reminded me of that middle part where they break it down. And I remember them playing this live and having the actual keyboardist on stage that was in the Phantom of the Opera fucking making. And really dug that. I was like, man, this album is going great for me. The Prophecy came. This was one that had that swing of Quest for Fire kind of thing where it had a swing that didn't really get me all the way. It wasn't bad, but it was way a step down. It was ahead of Can I Play with Madness, but it was a big step down from the other tracks I'd heard at the time. Then the next song, I still think this is one of their most beautiful, haunting melodies they've ever fucking done.
Great.
Clairvoyant, man. It's just that fucking, it's so dark, man. It's so good. And then to finish the album on Only the Good Die Young, I love this one too. It's almost lesser of a heavy metal type of song than the rest of it, but it's really cool.
It kind of feels like a B-side to me, but really, I like it.
Only in a good night. I just like the way he sings it. I like the chorus. I really like that song.
I do like it.
I like this album a lot. And if there was one Maiden album, if I was to sit here right here as we're talking, this is one of the albums that over the years has gone up more for me.
Yeah, me too.
Can I Play with Madness doesn't bother me that much anymore as I've gotten older, blah, blah, whatever. It just was awkward to come out of the gate with this. I'm like, oh no, this is the one where they lose it. They're going to fucking lose it because Iron Maiden hadn't lost it, and they didn't lose it. They were, if anything, this was one of their most least commercial fucking records. And I thought the production was cool. I thought it was even slicker and smoother than the one before it. It was very, very tame as far as like there was no guitars biting you, none of that stuff. The vocals were still shooting at you, but all the rough edges of his voice were smoothed out across the board. Again, I thought this was an Adrian Smith kind of thing where he got that, vibe. I'm looking at it. I don't see Dave Murray did write the Prophecy, which surprisingly is my least favorite song on this. Well, I would put it ahead of Can I Play with Madness, but that's not one of Dave Murray's best moments to me. But I think the standout track, I love Moonchild, is probably my favorite, but I love The Evil That Men Do. But I do think The Clairvoyant is one of the best Iron Maiden's deepest cuts.
It's a good one. It's really good. I agree with you.
I love the way it's just the way they play. Oh man, it's so good. This album, I would give an 8. Now I did not see this tour either. I was in another world. This is when Deceased was doing our stuff. I missed a lot of shows then. I don't know if we were more too underground to go to arena shows, or we were just too busy at this point.
Yeah.
I wasn't on drugs anymore, but I didn't get to see this. Didn't get to see the tour. I give this album an 8. I would definitely put this. I like this more than Power Slave, and I think I think I like this a little more than Somewhere in Time too. I think it's like if I'm going to get into the points, if Somewhere in Time would be like an 8.1, this is probably like an 8.5 for me, because really the Prophecy, it's not really terrible either. Again, and Can I Play with Madness? The only stuff I don't like. I mean, if it was to play straight through, I wouldn't turn anything off. Infinite Dreams, I really like that one. I really like.
It's a great song.
When they put the video out of this tour, what was it? They played a lot of this stuff. What was that video? That was the one where they did the Still Life and all the weird songs from them. That was a good video. What was that called? Made in England? That's what it was. Made in England. That was good. That was good to hear, like Infinite Dreams, living on the razor's edge. I love all that.
Yep.
So that's me. I give it an 8. I'll say 8.6. I know Alan's going to like this one because I can see him. He's in a better mood now.
He's still thinking of that kid's back patch.
It's funny because a lot of things stylistically about this album are very similar to Somewhere in Time. They're doing the synths and key stuff heavily. It's still got that much smoother sound overall. It's not it doesn't have the aggressiveness of the older albums. But I love this album start to finish almost. It's everything that just didn't quite click on Somewhere in Time. It all falls into place here, and they nail it, and it's great. I don't know what to attribute it to. Like you pointed out, King, with Somewhere in Time, there were some fractures starting to show in the band. Bruce had very different ideas what they wanted to do, and the band wholeheartedly rejected him. He came back to the table with ideas for this album, and they got incorporated this time. So everybody was kind of back on the same page with this album, and it's really good. The artwork, I like it a lot. Now, I agree. I have no idea what point they're trying to make or everything, but at the same time, it's open-ended. I can look at this and like the Somewhere in Time art is like, well, what is going on here? I can build my own story around this if I want to. It's got that. It's cool. It's creepy. It's pretty in an odd way, but you can let your imagination run wild looking at that cover. This album, the thing that really makes this album go over the top for me is the way the songs fit together very nicely in terms of just going from track to track to track to track. The transitions here, and again, maybe I've never known the full backstory that there's maybe some kind of loose concept to the whole thing, but the track listing, the running order, the songs just all fit together perfectly. Each song is very easy to identify. They all stand apart, but they also, go together and create something that's greater than the sum of their parts. I'd agree. The Prophecy is maybe the one that's, a little bit of a step below the rest, but it's still not a bad tune. It's just not quite there with the rest of it. I like Can I Play with Madness? Yeah, it's got, it's more of a single, but it still fits here. It's a great album. They've, it took them an album. They hiccuped for that one album, kind of getting used to the style, and then they just write a bona fide classic in that style. It didn't take them long to master it.
And this is Steve Harris's second favorite Maiden album. Last time, Peace of Mind and Seventh Son was second.
Excluding the Di'Anno albums, which again, it's very hard for me to compare the Di'Anno albums to the Bruce albums. I don't know why. Excluding the Di'Anno albums, this is my second favorite behind Peace of Mind. And probably at least 1 or 2 days a week, this may even edge Peace of Mind out. Excellent album, just well executed. Everything about it fits. And yeah, just the track listing. They couldn't. I can't imagine these songs in different orders or with a song missing somewhere. And I'm not going to skip anything on this album. All these songs have to come together. They work as an entire unit so incredibly well. Do I give it a 10? Do I give it a 9? Do I give it something in between? I don't know if it matters at this point. It's right in that. It's right there, right at the top of the stack in that 9 to 10 range.
9.7.
9.732. I got to outbid that Sergio in Eastern Europe somewhere who's trying to snipe the auction from me.
Well, to me, this album is just as good as Somewhere in Time. I think I like the feel of Somewhere in Time a bit more. That one has just more of a dark atmosphere to it. This one, the keyboards or the guitar synth or keyboards or whatever the fuck they decided to do with this was a little more pronounced, I think. And I think it rounded off the edges a little bit, but it made these songs a lot smoother, which is very cool. I mean, I have no complaints with any. And Can I Play with Madness? Yeah, that's the obvious. The single, the lead-off single, I think, is what they started off on that album with. But I have no complaints. Only the Good Die Young. I think it's kind of B-side-ish, but I still like the song a lot. Evil That Men Do's perfect song. Prophecy or Clairvoyance, perfect song. Moonchild, perfect. Infinite Dreams, beautiful. I love this album. You really can't go wrong. And I think really what's going on with the cover here, they threw Derek Riggs a complex concept. And he's like, fuck you, I'm not doing that intricate shit that I did on the last album. So he went super simplistic. And you got all iterations of Eddie throughout the career. You got the first album, you got Killers, you got Number of the Beast, Peace of Mind, Power Slave, and then you got the ripped apart Cyborg having its seventh baby. So I mean, all iterations of Eddie are here. All 7 sons are all here on the cover. I think he just took the title really literal and just went with cool pastels and something different. It stands out. It looks cool. I like it.
I like the blue on it. I do.
Yeah, I like it. The blue green, very cool. I love this album. I have no complaints, to be completely honest. Do I love it as much as Stranger or Somewhere in Time? No, but it's a lateral move. They didn't really get better or worse. It's just they're in this zone, and I like it. It's very good stuff.
No number?
Whatever. What I say? 9.7 on. I'm gonna have to go 9.6. Oh, the numbers are about to change here, though. We're going into another era for the band. Let's see. This is 1980, 1990.
No, longer. Yeah. And there's a shift here. There's a departure for the first time in a while. For the first time in about 7 years, Iron Maiden doesn't have a fully returning cast.
Nope. No Prayer for the Dying. King.
Yep. Well, let's put it this way. Adrian Smith was out. He had enough with them playing the songs too fast. It was not what he wanted to do. We learned this later when he interviewed him for all those histories of Iron Maiden. He was not happy. He was definitely wanted to do his own thing. He went and did his ASAP thing, which sucked. And fucking
I also heard that he didn't like the direction that when they started writing for this album, and there was going to be sort of a return to root style, that he wasn't happy with that decision either. That he probably would have rather stayed in the Seventh Son.
He was definitely saying that everything was just getting away from him. They just didn't seem they were in the same wavelength headwise. Maybe he Bruce went and did his solo thing here. We know all this is coming. So there's a lot of stuff like, again, when you do all these tours and you're the biggest band and stuff, there's at some point you're going to be like, you know what, I've done it. I did it again and again and again and again. Now I want to do something different, but you can't break up. And I respect the shit out of Steve Harris for doing what he did by keeping it the right way. You can only take it so far. You can't be putting stuff that's not Iron Maiden acoustic records, complete acoustic. I don't know. Not in my world. I don't see that at all. Even now with how weird they are nowadays compared to them. But it was definitely something happening. So when they bring in Janet Gers, we all know Janet Gers, Gillan, White Spirit. I think a hell of a fucking player. People don't like him dancing and all that. I could care less if he dances or not. Fucking Richie Blackmore used to do it. I could care less. Anyway, they bring him in, and I remember we were out. And this one just fell upon me. We were in a record store one day. I think we were stealing. It literally was like 22. And fucking we were out stealing. And I remember seeing, oh my God, look, a new Iron Maiden record. No Prayer for the Dying. I'm going to buy this. And I remember looking at it going, man, this is fucking weird. This cover's bizarre. It looked like a whole new motif to it all or some reason. It just didn't seem the same. It almost seemed like it was not them or something. It was weird in my head. Don't get me wrong. We bought it on cassette so we could play it in the car while we were out stealing. And Tail Gunner came on, and I sort of got the vibe of Tail Gunner that I got with Invaders. I didn't dislike it, but I didn't really like it either. And this is kind of when that Heaven Can Wait chorus came back with that climbing to the sky fucking repeatedly. Tail Gunner, you're a tail gunner. Tail Gunner, you're a tail gunner. And then I fight over this all the time. I love Holy Smoke. I really like Holy Smoke. I think it's a cool single. At the time, I didn't know they were scaling down and going back to the basics and stuff. I mean, I guess they just felt like they did this huge thing and they were blah, blah, blah going backwards. And they wanted to fucking take it back in time. So I was cool with that. I like Holy Smoke. I get the Preacher Man thing. That was done to death. It was nothing special. It seemed like this record just wherever they wanted to go, they went. And then the title track is cool too. I like No Prayer for the Dying. I think it's unique in its own way. I think it definitely sounds Maidenish. It's like Maiden of the couple years before. They obviously backed off the guitar synth and all this, and they were going for anything. They were going for a rougher edge, almost street level band. Because I did see this tour, and they did come out in blue jeans and stuff, and there was an Eddie, but that was about it. It was basically go on the stage and play your shit.
Yeah.
I like that. I always thought it was a weird named song, but Public Enema #1, a song that October 31 covered for a Maiden tribute, and they didn't want anything past Seventh Son to be on there. So I went, and the people were this shows you how little they really were Iron Maiden diehards. I told them it was a B-side from fucking Peace of Mind. We actually covered Public Enema #1 on one of the Maiden tributes. And I like that song. I don't know about the name is, whatever. I could just see they were fucking in a weird head space for sure here.
Yeah.
The song Fate's Warning, which I'm wearing the shirt. that was weird to me, but I liked that song too. I thought it was pretty cool. I really was digging this fucking record, minus Tail Gunner on side 1. I like those next 4 songs. A lot of people definitely wouldn't agree with me. I like the Assassin. I like the way that comes in. Do. Always dug that. Thought that was pretty fucking cool. And I it's scaled down, but it's Maiden. I'm digging it. Run Silent, Running Deep. It's okay. Hit or miss. I can take it or leave it. Doesn't do a lot for me on that one. Hooks in You was the one Adrian Smith thing that they used left over from him. I didn't like that one too much. That one just doesn't work for me.
Dumb lyrics.
And this is where we're at the point where, Marty's Lament, we'll call it. Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. I don't mind the song, but I don't want it on an Iron Maiden record.
It's a terrible song. It's a shitty song.
It's not an Iron Maiden song for sure. I can see Bruce Dickinson, and I've heard Freddie where he did it from and all that, and whatever to that one. I don't like that. So you've got 3 basically misses in a row. So I went from fucking the first 6 songs, really, really enjoying those songs more so than probably anybody else on this panel is going to say. 7, 8, and 9, I could pass on. Mother Russia is almost like Alexander the Great. It goes to tell you a story. It never tells you a story. I will give it a point for having the melody in it from the Phantasm soundtrack is on there. So I'll give it a point for that. But overall, I like this record more than most people do. I love Holy Smoke. I think it's a cool song. I like the video for it too.
It's fun. It's a fun song.
For me, this record, I'm going to give it. It's weird because I want to go high. I mean, I don't see it in league with the best of Power Slave and stuff like that, but I want to give it a higher number. I'm gonna go 7. I'm gonna go 7 with this record. I can go like 7.2 because I really like those songs. I love No Prayer for the Dying. I love the melodies are beautiful, and I like with Gerst when he came in and jammed with Murray, and the tour was really cool. He had a raw edge to him, and I think they needed to like take a step back. And I think in music and metal and in general in the music world, everybody was taking a step back because everything had kind of like shot its wad as the biggest thing in the world. Everything was becoming more about like the music and less about the show. And they were, and they did that, and they definitely came. I said I'm not missing him this tour no matter what. So I went and saw him at the Patriot Center, which was an 8,000 seat, little college-y arena. They weren't the big thing. Anthrax opened up, and I remember fucking Nico was wearing a fucking King Diamond shirt when they played.
Wow.
It was wearing, I think it was a them shirt if I remember right. Anyway, I liked it. I could tell Bruce Dickinson was rough around the edges. His vocals on this record are more like a Gillan. He definitely doesn't have his highs really in place. You could tell he's beat up vocally on the record. Nico's a little simplified on this, plays a little safe. Steve's bass doesn't sound the best it's ever. I will say probably not one of the better Martin Birch productions. Maybe that was intentional, or maybe Steve Harris was starting to put his name on it more than Martin at this point. But I still dig it. I like the tour.
It says produced, engineered, and mixed by Martin Birch, so he's still putting that stamp on it.
I think Steve might have said, "Hey, you don't got to go all this," or they just simplified so much, like, "Oh my God, how far they took the production with the last one." But I stand up for this record. I always will. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people do think it is. I think it's decent, and I'm giving it a 7.
Yeah, this album for me is a strange one because this is the first album that came out when I was into heavy metal. I got into heavy metal in that window in between Seventh Son and this album. That's when I hit the right teenage years to start getting into this stuff. So by the time this came out, I had already gotten Made in Japan, the Live After Death, the first 2 Diano albums, probably 1 or 2 of the others, like Peace of Mind. So I was already getting pretty deep into Maiden's discography. So this was a big release for me in a way. It's like, a new Iron Maiden album that I can go out and buy on day one if I can get to a record store. And at the time, I enjoyed it. It hasn't aged well for me. And some of the things you pointed out, King, there's just weird things that aren't quite there on this album. They're obviously, yes, they've abandoned the trajectory they were on for the past 2 albums, and they've kind of gone back to basics, but it feels very subdued to everything that they did on that classic run of albums once Bruce had joined the band. The other things, the cover art does look kind of different. It's not bad, but it's nothing amazing either. The production, the performances, they're not bad, but they're not amazing either. Adrian's obviously gone. You get the sense that Bruce's head is in another place. He's already released Tattooed Millionaire by the time this came out. So he's already got 1 foot out the door almost, in terms of focusing on solo stuff. Yannick's in the mix, but he's obviously not going to make any big waves as the new guy and the biggest heavy metal band on the planet. But are they the biggest heavy metal band on the planet anymore? By this point, Metallica's the biggest heavy metal band on the planet.
Right.
And Iron Maiden is still way, way up there, but there's, again, things are shifting here a little bit. And like you've pointed out too, King, other styles of metal are becoming much more dominant by now. This, here you're in the late thrash and death metals, really on the forefront of everyone's mind. Iron Maiden, yes, they're sticking to their guns, and that's great. Sure, I don't want to hear Iron Maiden try to go in a death metal direction, but this album, didn't get as much attention and stuff. It wasn't going to be the big release of the year, but not by a mile. And going through the track list again, as a dumb teenage kid, I didn't mind Tail Gunner, but yes, you're right, King. It's a little too simple. It's a little too repetitive. I don't dislike it as much as you do. It's okay, I'll give it a very weak thumbs up on Tail Gunner. Holy Smoke is a very cool song. At the same time, it's by 1990, it feels like, oh, it's another metal band writing another metal song about the corrupt.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
So it's been done. It's been done several times by now. I like the song, but it's not novel in any way. And after that, you just get into a lot of, for me, you get into a few songs that aren't bad but don't stand out. With No Prayer, Public Enema, Fate's Warning. So yeah, they're okay. And then side B is not as strong as side A. So Hooks and You is very dumb lyrically. It's meant to be bouncy, catchy, fun, single entendre. Just doesn't quite come together. Bring Your Daughter is always just kind of a little bit like, really? You wrote this? Like you said, King, it doesn't really fit on an Iron Maiden record.
And he liked it so much that he told Bruce, this is going on our album too. I mean, I just like, what the fuck? There's no way.
And they made it was a single too. It was
they played that live. They fucking broke it down and everything on the tour. They had the crowd singing it too, man.
That's what you do to keep your singer happy and in the band, apparently.
Right.
I guess, but and then Mother Russia, the comparison to Alexander the Great's pretty good. It's another one of these songs that's meant to be the longer epic closer, and it's just not. It's a song. It's there. It's not terrible in any way, but I usually stop this album long before we get anywhere near Mother Russia. In terms of a ranking, again, I have a little bit of a soft spot for it because it was the first new release Iron Maiden album for me. But if try and look past the personal bias, there's not much to come back to here and play over and over. This is the one album where you have to kind of start digging to find any. If you're making a greatest hits Iron Maiden album, do you put anything off this album on it? Is there room for any of these tracks on that?
I would put Holy Smoke if I had to pick one.
I guess you would. I guess so. But
I'm not saying it needs to be there, but that's the one I'd pick.
It might. There's a very good chance. There's a very good chance this album is not represented on an Iron Maiden best of 2 CD set.
I think if I'm right, because my wife has the 2 CD set, isn't it? Bring the Daughter to the Slaughter, the one they put on there.
They might have. I don't know all the best ofs and stuff.
I asked Marty. The best
never
of
kept
these,
track of
that one. Is that what the fuck's on there?
I don't have
wife
that.
Has it, and it's like fucking.
I don't know.
To the Slaughter. I mean, I'm looking at it's Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter for sure.
Ouch.
Good God, because that was a single. That was They also did a video for Tail Gunner.
The Tail Gunner was a single. Holy Smoke.
Gunner.
And Holy
Smoke.
Smoke.
Also did a live video which was barely played for fucking No Prayer for the Dying too.
Okay, I don't remember that.
It's a live. It's them. They're playing it for real, but it's just it never got play. They did a lot of small shit. They did a lot of those fake name things for this too. For this thing, going out there playing these alias shows and stuff. They had to, man. I mean, I'll be honest with you. When I saw them on that tour, we had bad seats off to the right on the side. It was not full. It was one of those things where you took closest seats to the stage, and unfortunately, they were to the side of the stage instead of like getting something on the floor. But it was not full. It was definitely Slayer, Metal, all that it was totally the changing of the guard.
Yep.
Yeah, this style metal wasn't in vogue. In terms of a ranking, it's a hard one to call here. I know I didn't say a lot of good things about Somewhere in Time, but Somewhere in Time's probably would have to. I certainly wouldn't rank it higher than Somewhere in Time. So I'm giving it. I'm giving it like a 5 or a 6. It's a very average, kind of very plain Iron Maiden record.
That's halfway from the bottom,
Yeah, if I'm doing the letter grade thing, it's definitely down in that C- kind of. Yeah, it doesn't.
I get you.
Suck, but it's disappointing at this point for me. And it's cool that you like it because you're right. Not a lot of folks do give this one many props. So it's nice to hear somebody that does give it a better than average kind of rating. Marty, King's a little above average. I'm a little below average. Where are you at?
Where's your balls? Where do your balls drop, sir?
A little to the right, and I don't hate this album. Was I disappointed by this album? I sure was. But again, it can't be understated what was going on. I mean, Cowboys from Hell came out this year. And let's, love or hate Pantera. I'm not a fan, but
Neither.
that band kind of took over shit for a long period of time. And, Metallica, they had, at that point had started going into a more commercial direction. But, and one good thing that Maiden did, they looked at the landscape, and instead of changing their sound, which they didn't do, they changed their look. They went to the, we're hard asses with the jeans and the leathers, which is fine. They simplified. So they looked at what was going on and were like, it sounds like music's getting more simplistic. So they made the change that way. And Tail Gunner sounds like a leftover song, a B-side. I liked it a lot more when this album came out than I do now. I thought it sounded like a traditional Maiden song. Holy Smoke, it was weird, but I liked it. It was fun. It was a fun song. Cool. It's a fun video too. The rest of the album is good. There's some good songs on here. Hooks in You is just dumb. Sorry, Phil. Bring Your Daughter is an absolute turd sandwich of a song. It's like super stripped down. It's like Heaven Can Wait all over again. A stupid chorus repeated. Ugh.
I think while you're there, I think that was a time when Steve Harris was really into these bands like the Almighty and fucking Wolfsbane and stuff. All this bar rock shit.
Yep.
This is the time frame when
because the song stinks. It just stinks.
This is the time frame when Wolfsbane did tour with Maiden, and they met a fellow named Blaze Bayley, who we'll be talking about next week.
Yep. Maybe. And but didn't Bring Your Daughter? Didn't Bruce write that? I think Bruce wrote that song. Did. I think it was Bruce. I think that's a Bruce song.
Oh, I mean it is. I mean, it went for the Nightmare on Elm Street soundtrack originally.
Yep, it was a Dickinson song. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. But then Steve said, you can use it there, but you're going to use it here too. We're going to record it as well.
Right.
And he's like, I love that song. And that song did very well for them, man.
It did.
In the charts. And
I don't get it. I don't get it.
It doesn't work for me.
I don't have much to say about this album. I've listened to it over the years. I could put it on tomorrow and enjoy it. I would listen to the whole thing. There'd be a few things that bug me, but I can work through that. Again, it's still Maiden at this point. I can put up with a lot when it comes to this band, and they test it as they continue on here. But that's it.
And as you held 6, okay. And as you held that up, I prefer the original artwork than that fucking later one that they.
Yeah, they have to. It has an enhanced CD, so they have to computerize everything.
Yeah, that looks like shit.
Yeah. Keep the original. Last point I'll make on that one, Marty. You said you could listen to it tomorrow and be happy with it. I could listen to it tomorrow too, and I'm not going to hate it. It's a good example though of I'm never going to pick that album over 5 other albums in the Iron Maiden. I'm never going to pick this over Peace of Mind or Power Slave or Seventh Son or Killers. If I want to hear an Iron Maiden album, this one is so far down the list, it's just not going to get spins. It's just too average to ever. I'm never going to walk over to that CD rack back there and be like, you know what? I want to hear some Iron Maiden. Damn, let's go with No Prayer for the Dying today. Yeah. It's never going to happen. It's just again, not that it's a terrible album, but it's just it's a plain album. Every other album is chock full of songs I love. This one's full of songs I'm very mediocre about.
It's a simplified Iron Maiden for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, we
got, what year did this come out? 92.
92.
In my opinion, a big step up from No Prayer for the Dying.
This, and when we join again next week, this is, for me, the most underrated period of Iron Maiden, this next 2, for me. I fucking love this record. I love this record. My son loves this record. We played the shit out of this record when it came out. How this all started, we were drinking at my house one night, all the deceased guys. We were drinking beer like we were Leonard Skinner that night, man. Liquored up out of our mind. Headbangers Ball came on. I said, man, we're going to play a new Maiden song. Be Quick or Be Dead came on. I was like, man, these motherfuckers are playing speed metal. Holy shit, it was flashing so quick. Be quick, I'll be dead. I was just like, man, this is great. And he was singing like almost, and I'm joking when I say this to anybody, but almost death metal. He was like, remember he was doing like that, all that weird screeching and stuff. And his vocals were tore up. He was definitely going for the Ian Gillan angle where he was just like, just let it rip, But that was my first introduction to that, okay? I went and bought the fucking album immediately. Lead off song with Be Quick or Be Dead. I love that song. Now, immediately after that, I was like, oh, no, it's not going to be a good record. From Here to Eternity was second. Now, this one, This one I didn't like much. It's again, we're back to that bar rock where the almighty.
Is this a Bruce song too? I would say it probably is.
From here to eternity, hell ain't a bad place. And I just didn't care for it. Then Afraid to Shoot Strangers came on, and I dug that. I was like, okay, this is.
No, it's a Harris song. It's a Harris song.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, I could have told you. I have it right in front of me. Sorry, but yeah. Then Afraid to Shoot Strangers, which was also Harris. I fucking dug it. I thought it was really fucking cool. And then I realized this album is going to go for a really dark edge. I was like, this is the time of the world where we're at. And then Fear is the Key. I love this song. I love the melody. I think it's haunting as shit. I love it. Childhood's End's another one I fucking really dig.
Oh, that's unique too. Unique.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about this record. They had a Maiden vibe totally, but it was kind of like their own thing again. They were kind of like finding a new angle to do. Wasting Love, I like. It's for that's the closest I'll ever do to a love song, I assume. You know, that was almost like a heavy metal ballad to a degree, not full on, but I mean, it had its part. I really liked the lead in that. I mean, the band was good. I liked when Gers and Murray worked together because it was a little raw. Again, this is Martin Birch this is his last production with them. He went for that raw sound again. I think they were in that barn. Would they do this one at the Steve Harris barn? On this,
I believe so. Yeah, this is one of them from Steve Harris's estate.
Fugitive, not my favorite. It's okay, but that one comes and goes. Doesn't do a lot for me. Chains of Misery, I like. It's got a bluesy swing to it. The Chains of Misery. I like that one. That almost sounds like something almost not Iron Maiden, though, but I like that song. The Apparition is decent. Not my favorite, but I do like it. It's pretty cool. So what's happening with me is the songs are so good, and then you're getting this, again, the donkey balls where it's like, these are good. It's not going down here. It's not like absolute shit like I would like Lost for Words for me. It's more like this, okay? And then what I don't give a fuck what anybody fucking says, the most underrated Iron Maiden song of all time, Judas Be My God. I think it's the most underrated Iron Maiden song of all time. Dave Murray, I think it's I think they should have played it. They should have put it out as a single. I think it's one of the absolute most fantastic Iron Maiden songs in the history of the band. And if somebody asked me what the most underrated Iron Maiden song is of all time, I would go with that one. I love that song. And as much as I want to say how good that is, Weekend Warriors, we're back to that Bruce Dickinson solo sound. I don't want to talk about Weekend Warriors.
No,
it sounds like good. It just sounds like AC/DC, that forgettable rock that AC/DC's done for the last 12 Walmart albums that I just don't care for. And then the album closes what Steve Harris is one of his top Maiden songs of all time, Fear of the Dark. I love it. Loved it then, love it now. I think it's a fantastic closer. This album obviously has fucking 12 songs. I think it was a double record. Then if it wasn't, I know it was a long CD. It ran 57 minutes and 58 seconds. I really like this record. I do. I mean, me and my son play it all the time. I like the stuff. People are like, why do you kind of fucking you sit through Chains of Misery or The Apparition or not The Apparition, which isn't that good. Childhood's End, which I love. I mean, it was like songs about AIDS and here and stuff, and Fear is the Key. I love that, the drive of that. Nico plays his ass off on this. I like the Nico Steve edge. Now, again, Bruce is very loose in the vocals. You can almost hear him hoarse on this fucking record. He may have been, but what I'm thinking I like about they didn't set it straight. They didn't fucking polish it. They didn't fix it in the mix. You know what I'm saying? They left it. And I appreciate that. Looking this over one more time, I'm going to fucking go. I mean, I love Be Quick or Be Dead is fucking fantastic. Fear is the Key is fantastic. Childhood's End is fantastic. Fear is the Key, as I say that one, that's fantastic. Judas Be My God, I live for. Fear of the Dark, I love. Some people are like, why do they keep playing that every tour? I told them they're not going to stop. Steve Harris' favorite song. That and 2 Minutes to Midnight supposedly will never come out of the set list. Those are the two songs Harris loves to play live, supposedly. Then you got horse shit like Weekend Warrior. From Here to Eternity, I don't hate, but it doesn't sound like Iron Maiden. It just seems like, man, this does sound like something like a rock band, like one of these, Concrete Foundation, CMC presents, Junkyard, or one of these fucking bands at the time, and you're like,
oh, that From Here to Eternity is stupid fucking lyrics too.
Yeah, it just doesn't work, and that's the things that's going to hurt the record. But I mean, I got to go around these. It's like I'm driving around fucking cones here because the stuff I love, I really fucking love. So we're back to this thing where, almost like the Number of the Beast, where some I love so fucking much, and some, I'm going to settle myself with a 7. I'm going to go with a 7. I can't go as high as an 8 because I'm looking at this Weekend Warrior, baby. It just sucks. I mean, I think this was the point where they were letting, like you said, keeping their singer happy.
Yep.
You know, I think it's still happening. And I think one of the reasons there's 12 songs on here because I don't think it was keeping their bass player happy. And he was going to make sure that he got the songs on there he wanted to. So they just took them all. Instead of Martin Birch stepping up and saying, hey, motherfucker, this Weekend Warrior sucks, dude. Put it as a B-side. Get it the fuck out of here.
Yep.
You understand?
Yep.
I love the artwork for the record. I know this is a fucking this is fucking the end of fucking Derek Riggs. Hell's coming with him with this record. It's problems with him are arising here as this one went on. I like the Eddie. I thought it was bizarre, like a tree Eddie, whatever the fuck that was.
Great hands. Again, great hands.
Yes. Didn't bother me at all. Dude, no fucking tour for this because Bruce is gonna walk. No fucking tour. Nobody seemed to fucking care when it came out that much, amongst outside of our group of people that love our Maiden. Yep. Nobody was talking about it. Again, we're talking your Panteras, your Slayers, all that stuff was where all the talk was coming from. And the new
White
new
Zombie.
Bands, all the new bands like that, and Marilyn Manson and all that horse shit. But that's okay because, the ones like us, I mean, I don't know if you guys rushed out and bought this, but I know I did, and
I on tape. Yeah, I bought on tape.
I appreciated it, and I still do. And I'm gonna give it a 7, but I'm gonna go on the higher side of a 7, where I'm probably at about a 7.6, Alan, if we're locking in something like that. But I like it. I like it a lot, and I stand up for it all the time. Yeah, I see this. Yeah, 2 tours in Europe. You got them. We got nothing. And I think when it came to this stuff, this is when they're going to be doing the Rail Live and Dead one. Basically, Bruce said, they were filling out those European markets, trying to keep it there because they knew in America things were not good as far as sales and the reason to be there.
Yep.
I'm going to give it a 7 too, but I'm going to go on the low end of 7. So I'll start with the number this time and then walk through it.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that though, right out of the gate.
Yeah, it's a step up from No Prayer for the Dying. No
Better
doubt.
Wait a minute. Better than Somewhere in Time?
He said No Prayer.
I said no prayer.
But didn't you give Somewhere in Time a 6?
I gave it a 6, yes. And I'm going to give this one I'm going to give it a weak 7.
Right.
But Marty, remember this before he goes on. Remember, Peace of Mind's my favorite, and I gave it a 9 and gave Killers a 10.
Right.
So it's weird how the rating
I get it.
goes.
I get it. No.
You can use numbers to prove anything, Marty. But this one. This one has some ups and downs, like King described. I like the cover art, although it is, very different, from most other Maiden albums. I remember this one also, getting that debut video for Be Quick or Be Dead. And that's a stormer of a song. That one comes out and smacks you in the face pretty hard. It's got some punch to it. It's got some bite, which is something that a lot of No Prayer for the Dying was kind of missing. So, it was a good lead single to kind of get people interested and, hyped for the album. But then you've got, right after that, From Here to Eternity, which y'all have already commented on. Yeah, kind of silly lyrics. Don't need that. But then you have Afraid to Shoot Strangers, which is an amazing song. Very good. Is something if folks aren't aware, it's actually written in the context of the Gulf War that was going on in 1991. And that's something that's interesting or interested me at the time because most of Maiden has a long history of songs about war and that stuff, but it was usually always very much a historical context thing. Troopers on the battlefield back with Prussia and stuff long ago. And this was much more modern day, topical in the news reflections, which it struck me as interesting. It was kind of the same subject matter, but really brought into modern times for the band. After that, a lot of these songs I'm okay with. Fear's the Key, Childhood's End, Wasting Love. All of them are okay. None of them, they're not personal favorites, but they're not bad. The Fugitive, Iron Maiden, has had this long-running gimmick. We haven't commented on it actually, but there's all these songs of going back to The Prisoner, The Assassin, The Fugitive,
The Clairvoyant, and they're really hit or miss. I gotta say, some of those are The Trooper. Some of them are all-time classics, and some of them
It's just like, well, that's the song for the album. They got it out of the way, I guess.
We got 2 of them on here.
Yeah, every now and then you
Got
do
to
get a
keep
double
on
shot,
running.
and they kind of missed on both of them a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, Chains of Misery, I don't really, that one I'm not too keen on. Judas Be That Guide, yeah, that's one that does. I'm not as big on it as King, but it is overlooked.
It's another weird song. It's another weird song on this album where like Childhood's End and Judas Be My Guide. They're the 2 strange ones, but they work. They're
Yeah.
good.
My
They're
God,
good
to me is classic Maiden sounding. I think it's got one of the most beautiful melodies they've ever put on a song. And I just love everything about it. It's very harrowing. Go back and if there's one song, you go back and listen.
It's been a while. It's been a minute since I've spun this one for sure.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, Weekend Warrior, well, it's a goofy song. I will give it 1 point because it does the same kind of thing that I just mentioned with Afraid to Shoot Strangers. Lyrically, the song is pretty straightforward, just bland rock. Lyrically, though, it's kind of commenting on in a way, it's the band reflecting on the fact that we're getting older, that we can't go out and party 24/7 and all this stuff like we could have 10 years ago. It's the you're a weekend warrior sometimes that you're having to scale that back. And so once again, it's them kind of looking in the mirror, being a little more reflective with where they're at. It's not necessarily a good song, but I thought it was interesting. It was an interesting concept that the band is kind of making that comment. It's like, yes, we've been the biggest heavy metal band in the world a few years ago, but now the relationships are strained and the music market's changing, and we're not going to be out there, doing coke off of naked hookers, 5 nights a week. We've grown up, and we can't do that even if we wanted to anymore. So they get a point there for like just some maybe a little bit of bearing their soul.
I just wish he did it to a better song.
Yeah, agreed. And then the end, yes, on a classic. Fear of the Dark and Afraid to Shoot Strangers are the 2 tracks, and they're similar. They're slightly longer tracks, they're slower tracks, they're moodier tracks, very atmospheric, right. And they're both personal favorites out of the Maiden catalog. So this one for me, it's got 2 classics. It's also got very good songs with Be Quick or Be Dead, and then it has a lot of songs that are average to a little above average. There's a couple that are drop the ball a little bit, but there's nothing. Maybe From Here to Eternity might be the one that annoys me the most, and even that I can sit through. I don't have to skip that track.
Do you think we're getting into the world of CDs where the record's probably too long, where it's almost 60 minutes?
Yes, we are now that's a good point, King. We are very much. This album does not need to have 12 songs on it. This album,
no.
If they culled this down to, let's call it 9, it would feel much.
This album would be a lot more lethal, I think. A lot more, not lethal.
That's why I stand by that. That's why I stand by the let's make Bruce happy, let's make Steve happy.
Yeah,
I had not thought about. I hadn't considered that, but you might be onto something there. That this is because again, at this point, Bruce is out of this band, or they announce he's leaving the band less than a year after this thing is released. So I mean, the writing was already on the wall inside the Iron Maiden camp, and maybe it was just sure put it all on there because this is the kind of the last hurrah, and I want my songs on. I want my songs, maybe so. But yes, the album is too long. I'm not going to say it's got a lot of filler. If I was in a snarky mood, I could say maybe it's got too much filler. But again, looking at these songs, I don't know if it's filler, but they definitely could have left some of these songs off and had a much tighter.
It just doesn't have a balance to it. It's like we're here, then we're there. The Weekend Warrior and From Here to Eternity just seem out of place to me.
Yeah, which is why I'm going to give it. I'm okay giving it a 7, but it's a weaker 7. It's going to be on the weaker side of 7.
Okay.
All right, Marty, your turn to balance the equation here.
There's no balance. It's a 7. That's a good call for this album.
That's pretty balanced.
Hey, I'm happy everybody likes Fear of the Dark, man.
That's cool. The thing that this is so superficial and dumb, but it's wrecked me for the Fear of the Dark song. I've said this before on these streams or my channel. I saw some live stuff during this era and on video, and with Bruce's accent, it sounds like Fear of the Duck. Oh my God. As soon as I heard it, I can't unhear it. And in my head, I'm rewriting a constant fear that mallards are always near. Just my head goes in really dumb,
having fun with it.
yeah, dumb places with it. And every time I hear this song, I think of Fear of the Duck. Every time they do it live, he says duck. It drives me nuts. But this is a good album, more or less. We've gone through all this stuff. From Here to Eternity's crap. I mean, Afraid to Shoot Strangers, Quicker Be Dead, great. Fears the Key's a great song. Childhood's End is an overlooked classic on this album, as is Judas Be My Guide. Chains of Misery is a little too feel good, fist pumping for me. Weekend Warriors garbage. The songs are, I mean, it's a 7. It's a good album. There's some great songwriting, and there's some tired writing on here. And I would imagine they had to really do a lot of wheeling and dealing to keep Bruce in the door at this point, because I'm sure at this point his head was out the door. I mean, he didn't want to be here. They probably like, look, man, we're doing this album. You got to stick around, at least see the album through to the end. His voice is wrecked after years of touring. He's still doing okay with it. He's making good on it.
Well, they went out and toured, and I remember, they were obviously, him and Steve were definitely not on the best of terms.
Yeah.
And, Steve was saying stuff like, "Oh, he'd show up when the big shows were there. His voice was okay. The other nights he would just piss through it, like he was."
Yeah, there were, and that's getting into the real live one, real dead one tours,
right.
Kind of rounding things out. And there was definitely some cattiness going back and forth. Because Bruce bristled when Steve would make those comments, and was like, "Fuck you! You tried doing. How many fucking shows have I done for you and your band over the past decade? And now you want to whine and bitch that I'm not pitch perfect every night when all this bad blood has been going on for a couple of years now."
Yeah.
I think one of his comments was like, well, it's a little hard to go out there and be Mr. Happy Face all the time with all the shit going on backstage."
Right. I remember another thing too, where Steve was like, "Oh, he's going to leave," or when he left, he's going to leave. He's going to go play country music if they're going to pay him enough. He was like, it got really bad.
Wow.
I don't know if you guys saw that thing on Bruce Dickinson on the Real channel a couple weeks ago. They actually did a 2-hour thing on him, and it was like they literally had a guy playing him, and they were like telling the story. Bruce was involved with it a little bit, but not that much. It was a lot of time spent when he was like leaving the band, like talking about his solo career. He was like getting caught up in all that shit too. He started wearing the Soundgarden hat and all that kind of shit too, but he always said, "Hey man, I'm going to fucking do this, but I'm taking it elsewhere to do it," which I don't care. If somebody wants to do some shit, just don't bring it to the fucking band that you're, don't try to bring it forward. In my opinion, that's just me.
And the whole solo thing for him, he figured it out eventually. He put out some pretty lackluster solo albums, but Accident
he put
of
out some
Birth,
good solo albums too.
Yeah, Accident of Birth and Chemical Wedding. When he started to embrace the Maiden, it's when shit was good again.
Well, he was almost metal again. I personally think his best one is Skunk Works. I think that's the best one.
I don't know if I've ever heard that one.
Well, it's not, it's hit or miss still. It's still alternative-y in spots, but at least I could see like he's trying to do a bunch of different stuff on one record, and it doesn't all work. None of it all works for me. But the reason people like Accident of Birth and Chemical Wedding is because it's almost Iron Maiden again.
Well, you got
I do think the guitars are too heavy.
You got Roy Z, with the very.
But he had Adrian back. He had Adrian with him at that time too.
Yeah.
So I mean,
you knew it was coming. We knew we're going to talk about this next week, but you knew all that. But I think, with Bruce here at this point, it was like you just said. It was probably hard as a motherfucker to get this shit done and recorded.
Yeah,
and make everybody happy.
Reportedly too. I mean, Bruce wasn't even happy with the very fact that he didn't, with the timing, he didn't, I guess, give the green light on the band announcing that he was leaving the band. That he's like, he didn't want it announced until after they did. He's like, well, we'll do the tours and then deal with this shit. And then the band actually, aka probably Steve, just went ahead and put it out there. Yeah, he's out of here. He's like, well, great. That completely changes the mood of the tours now. Now it's not us touring Fear of the Dark and stuff. Now it's Bruce's leaving tour.
Yeah.
And so once again, it's kind of dumping on me a bit. So even that, everything got off to the wrong start. From the timing of his departure announcement not being.
Well, I mean,
they weren't even on the same page about that shit, for God's sake.
If it leaked that it's your leaving, Bruce's leaving tour, that also kind of dictates your set list. All of a sudden, you're doing a greatest hits of Bruce tour.
Right.
Yeah.
And the press
and
doesn't give
people-
a fuck about Fear of the Dark. They give a fuck about Bruce leaving.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
people are showing up to hear the
the record
Trooper one
bank,
more
you know.
time, not to hear Judas Be My Guide.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Except
Yeah,
the
and so
one,
that's,
guy, one guy in the bad seats named King going, Judas be my guy. Come on.
Judas, man. I know there's some people fucking watching this right now that like Judas Be My Guy. That's a fucking great song.
That's a good song.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, Iron Maiden kind of ends with a little bit of a whimper here in, by, 93. And yeah, those 2 live albums come out to kind of wrap it up. The Live at Donington set came out around that time too. But yeah, there's this flurry of live stuff to kind of wrap things up. And you kind of feel like, wow, that was a weird end for a band that, less than 10 years ago ruled the planet. And here at the end, they couldn't even, they couldn't even rule the end of their own career very well.
There was nothing weirder than when Bruce Dickinson did that pay-per-view thing when they killed him on the stage.
They had that magician, thing.
That shit was cheaper than Jack Koshik, man.
They're cheaper than the Jack Koshik curtain separating the deceased.
I mean, I watched that. I was like, "Who's filming this? Me?" I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" Remember they killed him with Simon, whatever the guy, Drake, is that his name?
Yeah.
The magician at the end, they killed him, the Iron Maiden and shit. I was like, "What the fuck?" And it just ends, and they're playing the whole set. The whole set they're playing is like, they're like, was there like 100 people there? Or was it like a little fucking room or like a bar?
It was like in a studio. It was in a studio.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like this little side stage, and you could say you're like, what is this? The back of the stage or what? What is going on here?
Yep.
And so that brings us to an end of part 1 of our trek through Iron Maiden's discography.
I like what we did. I like it.
I think it's good.
I'm
glad we didn't go anymore. I don't know. I'm glad we didn't go further because it's already over 3 hours.
Oh yeah, no. This was. As we talked before the show began, this is a very natural break point in the band's career because at this point, everyone's wondering: is the band done? Is Iron Maiden going to carry on? Are they actually going to try to find a replacement for Bruce Dickinson? And is Bruce Dickinson going to keep making? I mean, yeah, like you said, King. He's getting the 90s alti rock kind of look with all this. Balls to Picasso and tattooed millionaire stuff. He doesn't seem like he's going to stay in heavy metal or maybe not even hard rock territory. It's the end. It looks like the end of an era around this point. It was seeing Iron Maiden come that close to kind of closing the chapter. Was a weird thing at that time. But of course they didn't. They would forge on for a little while longer at least. But that is a tale for another Friday night.
It is frozen. In time.
Tune in next week. Same worm time, same worm channel. Marty worm channel.
And I believe
even though this ran 3 hours and 20 minutes, it's still not as long as the new Iron Maiden record. I was waiting for Marty to say that.
Perfect. Yes. And with that, we're gonna bail. King, hang out. Don't hang up. And we'll all see you next week. Hopefully.
Cheers, everybody.
See you later.
We'll talk to King and see if we can. Yeah. Just to clarify, we'll talk to King, make sure schedules line up to do part 2 next week. Okay. If so, we'll probably do part 2 next week. If someone's schedule is off, then we'll see everybody again and somewhere in time very, very soon.
Right on. See y'all later.